Wait. Hello, everybody. Okay, first things first. Justin, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And I think I can hear you too. Wow. Hello, everybody. Welcome. NC, I know, camera died early. I just gave up. I'm just over it at that point. But good to see you, everybody. A guy doing things. Bud. And Admiral Negative. ABC, good to see everybody. My guest tonight is the incomparable Justin Kulp. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Hello. I was concerned you were going to say incompetent.
No. I think I would instantly get crucified by this community. Hold on. I can't go without the fan, so I gotta make adjustments. Hold on. It's far too humid. Justin's volume's very low. Let's see if I can't fix that. All right, Justin, you want to say something else?
Test 1, 2, beep boop.
That should be better. I will keep watching until my eyes start going. Awesome. Shane says you're Justin's biggest fan. Justin, how do you feel?
Great to meet you.
Awesome, very good. Still pretty low. I'm having it. Maybe I'm really loud too. But Justin's reading pretty good on my meters. Maybe when Justin starts talking more.
Yeah, test 1, 2. I could repeat a joke, but
I'll just turn you all the way up. We'll go with that. And then I'll make sure that Spotify stays a little bit low. Okay. You could repeat a joke. You have a joke?
I was kind of concerned because I didn't, but now I think I do.
Okay,
what has 10 arms, is purple, 3 eyes, and 55 strands of hair?
10 arms, is purple, 3 eyes, and 55 strands of hair.
Yes.
I don't know.
A monster.
Anyways, that was good. The answer was a monster, Admiral. Told by Richard Feynman. Let me see if I can turn you up a little bit louder in Zoom too. I don't think I can. Output level. No, you are maxed.
Oh, geez.
Well, it is what it is.
I just talk into it like this. Sorry.
Well, you have a deep and you have a soft voice, as opposed to myself, which is loud and like angry. Are you still using voice meter? Is there like a volume slider you can go a little higher on?
I guess I could try. Yeah, here, let me. The little meter thing is red now. I'm scared I might be clipping.
Red is fine. Red is not bad. Red is not always a bad thing.
Okay.
You're not clipping. Yeah.
Right. If people don't like it, they'll complain. I know this chat.
Okay. He gets to dish it right back to you guys tonight. That's what I love about it. Is Justin's now on this side of the camera, and he gets to experience all of the atrocities that are Tyrion. But nevertheless, you know the drill, everybody. We have our good friend Justin on tonight for our interview. The way that tonight will work is we will have a conversation. Justin and I will be talking about all sorts of things about Justin's background, his education, growing up, what it was like for him growing up, his education in undergraduate, and then moving into graduate schools, and and then his future prospects. Then we'll also talk about his research. Justin has a very unique research in that it's string theory, but maybe not as you might think of it. And also some other, he's got his baby. And also some other very interesting fields of physics that we can talk about a lot as well. Yeah, so excuse my cough. I'm still coughing a little bit, but nevertheless, so that's the idea. If you have a Justin for a question, then you can write !ask followed by your question, and during the formal Q&A, Justin will be more than happy to answer it so long as it's okay. But yeah, and you all know Justin's ability for answering questions from Discord. It's pretty extraordinary. the questions that Justin gets answered. So I have high hopes for this question and answer period. So
that's selection bias though, because I don't answer the ones that I don't know how to. So.
Everybody's allowed to ask questions, Booty. Everybody. So don't feel like you can't ask a question. I'm gonna pop another lozenge. Everybody can ask a question. Don't feel like you can't. It's definitely not. That's definitely not the case. Some announcements for this week. Tomorrow we have our game show, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Our game show this week is a good one because I have a strong suspicion that nobody is going to have an advantage going into this one. Strong suspicion. So it's just, I might be wrong, but there's a strong suspicion that nobody will have an advantage going into this week's quiz. It's going to be 19th century physics. So a history quiz, basically, or a history game show. It's going to be the, any questions fair game from the 19th century. So if it's physics and it's 19th century, it's fair game. So it's going to be a good one. And of course, there's a fabulous prize for the winner. You get a gifted sub to any channel you'd like. So you can have a gifted sub to my channel if you're not subbed. But if you are subbed, you have a gifted sub to somewhere else. Or, you can have a gifted sub somewhere else anyways. And I'll just weep after the camera's off. But nevertheless, after Thursday, we have our study stream. And Sunday, we have our resonance stream where I will be attempting with my crippled voice to be breaking glass with nothing but my voice. So okay.
So for 19th century physics, does that include physics that was contemporary at the time, like caloric or something like that?
I don't think so. It will probably be only physics that's made it through. It depends on what I find, honestly. Because I only know, I don't know all 25 questions off the top of my head. I have, ideas of things I need to look up. That's pretty much where I go with these game shows, is I have, a bunch of ideas that I'm interested on and want to, look up, and then we'll look up some historical things and, or some factual things, and be like, maybe I'll take a look at those. So,
caloric has made it through to an extent, because when I was in driving school, sorry, I just started the interview, I guess. When I was in driving school, one of the explanations for why tires get hot when they stop on the road was the transfer of caloric. So, which is ironic, I guess, because I think friction is what did caloric in. So,
I don't even know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know what caloric means, other than it's just it's energy, right?
It was like this idea that there was a fluid, and it was like the transfer of this fluid called the caloric that heated things or something like that. But then you couldn't explain why you could take two objects that were cold and rub them together and get something hot. So friction basically, as far as I understand, I could be getting this wrong, basically did caloric in or something. And that was the example from driving school. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We drive different up here.
I gotcha. Well, I guess so, because we don't use caloric in our driving school. Did you have to do one of those driver safety courses or whatever in high school?
No, but if you take if you take a driving class in Ontario before you get your license, it's because we have staged licenses, different stages, not that they're fake, You get to advance to the next stage faster, and you get cheaper insurance, allegedly.
I see. Not that they're fake. I'm glad you made sure you let me know that it wasn't staged. As in
That's
fake.
Right. It's not like the moon landing or the roundness of the Earth.
Oh, right. All staged. The International Space Station. I got you. Yeah. So that's funny. Yeah, we have we just do when you turn 16 years old. You take a test. You can drive under supervision for 6 months, and then you can just go take your test for a license. And you can either pass, but you have to do a bunch of things along the way, drive a certain amount of hours and stuff. And then we have defensive driving courses and things that you can take. I was court ordered to take one.
Oh.
Those were my young and my speedy days. Now I drive like I act old. So
we're getting all the juicy details out of you.
I know. This is not supposed to happen, Justin. I think the only other announcement that I wanted to make is a little bit of a reminder that next week I will be starting my lecturing for the university, so we're going to be cutting down to 2 streams a week to start, and then after a while hopefully we'll get back up into having like a couple more study streams and things throughout the week. And then I do want to have another series of interviews probably in August, so keep your eye out for that. But for now, the interviews end with Justin. So Justin, you are our third and final guest for this stint of interviews, and I'm very excited. We had a good round of guests. We had Andrew, Olivia, and now Justin. I feel like this is like I was just lucky. I got so many good guests this time. I had good guests last time. We had Kyle, Simon, and Gath. So far, it's been like a wonderful group of guests. But we're very excited about Justin tonight. So I guess without further ado, let's just kind of get into the conversation. I have all sorts of questions. Justin and I have shared, I don't even know, hours of discussion on Discord, and I have just so many questions about who this guy is, because Justin, I feel like Justin and I have all sorts of, like, we just send each other things that we know we will laugh at or like cringe at or stuff. So I have all sorts of questions about Justin, like growing up and stuff, because I was like, anybody who laughs at the same stuff as me has some sort of little bit of, we'll say, rough edges. but anyways, Justin, I kind of wanted to know where are you from? Because it's where you are from is unique, I think.
I guess. So I mean, I'm from. Okay, I will just answer the question in a straightforward way before beating around the bush. I am from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. So there are many provinces in Canada. One of them is Ontario. It's probably the one everyone knows because that's where Toronto is. And I think something like 1/3 of the population lives in like this like lower strip of Canada that just includes like I don't even know. It's like 1/3 of the population lives within 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers of Toronto or something like that.
Holy smokes.
I don't know if that's true. Somebody can fact check that, but it's a large percentage. Anyway, but Thunder Bay is in northern Ontario, so if you imagine the Great Lakes, it's on the tip of Lake Superior, basically. And so there are obviously more northern parts of Ontario, like if you're going up and you're touching like Hudson's Bay or something like that, and you know, people riding skidoos and shooting at polar bears. But what should I say? Skidoo?
I don't know.
Snowmobile?
I'm sorry. No, it's skidoos. Wait, are they talking about snowmobiles or skidoos?
Snowmobiles.
Oh, okay. Because skidoos go on water, don't they?
Oh,
Jet skis? Now I don't know.
I think maybe that's what you're saying is they're sometimes also called skidoo where I'm from. Look, I can just chalk it up because you'll never meet another person from there. So,
there
anyway.
you go.
So for context for the like if people know where Minnesota is, it's like a few hour drive north of Minnesota. If you know where Winnipeg is in Canada, then it's like 10 hours east of Winnipeg. It's south of basically nothing except for very small towns. Well, I don't want to be too mean to the small town people, but like there's no big city centers.
Town folk.
Yeah.
Right.
And I grew up actually in the country around, like outside of Thunder Bay. So like if you go and look at my house on Google Maps, which we're not going to do, it's like a house, and then it's like a huge green thing of just trees, boreal forest.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah. So I am country by those standards.
The question on everybody's mind is 100%. How many mooses? How much moose do you see on a regular, like growing up yearly? Let's say yearly. What's your moose average?
So the number of meese that I see each year is, isn't that the plural? Goose, geese, moose, meese. So the number of moose is very low, but the number, at least where I was living at the time, I haven't been there in a while, obviously. But like other things, deer, just all over. I also lived kind of close to where the city dump was. So, it was a real concern that if you went down and waited for the bus in the morning that, it might be a bear or wolves or a big cat.
I see.
Yes. But
we had coy dogs. We had coy dogs, which I imagine you might have coy wolves. Because coy wolves are something high, like more farther north than we have, but we had coy dogs, and we have lots of coyote, and And coy wolves are much more popular than coy dogs because that's like a coyote and a wolf breed. And coy dogs, they were just when coyotes would mate with stray dogs. And they don't hunt in packs; they hunt single, and they have no like obvious fear of like people or anything like that. I've only seen one in my entire life, and it was terrifying. It just looked like a giant coyote, because coyotes aren't very big; they're pretty small. But the coy dog was just big and mangy, and it didn't look like just a normal dog. But yeah, I guess so. Like, so did you have like a fear? So people always think about like wilderness and Canada with like wild animals. Did you have a fear of wild animals growing up, or were you sort of just like it was just what it was?
No, I was raised by them, so.
Oh, you were raised by them.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Ooh, tough crowd. Ooh.
Got some real zingers tonight, Justin.
I didn't want to get. I've been storing them up in my jokes.txt file for months. So, anyway, no, I mean, look, when I was like in grade 8 or something like that, and if my dad saw a bear in the backyard the previous day, I wouldn't be excited to walk down to the bus the next morning. My mom would drive us down in the drive us down in the car. But
I thought that ended that conversation was going to be very different. But my mom would say, "Get down there anyways, and you'll be fine. Just deal with it. Make loud noises."
The scariest part was if you were like, I would go and I'd ride my bike a lot. My grandmother lived very close to me, and I'd love to. I'd ride my bike up there because. I'd go visit people up there. I say up there as if people know where I'm going. But the scariest thing is actually when encountering like a wild animal like that on the bike, especially if it's in front of you and then you're trying to make the call. You're like, oh, if I ride past real fast, are they going to notice? Are they going to...
Eric Charneski, thank you for the raid of 10 people. Welcome in. How are you? We have our guest tonight, our mod and friend and physics guru in the Discord and in the chat. Justin Kulp was here. We're going to talk about his research and his education and stuff. And you're here at the nick of time. We're just starting off, so it's good to see you, Eric. Thank you so much. The NC, thank you for the shout out, Eric. Stealthy said that you drew a better pony than I did, which does hurt my feelings, but I like your pony has like hair like you though, which it's like long and
if you
flowing.
Put a mane on it.
I do.
Oh, but it's spiky, isn't it?
It is. It's spiky. Nice. Well, yours is like like flowing, I guess we'll call it. But yeah, let's not. I want to stay the course, Eric. So tell me about your education growing up then in the small town.
Yeah, that's actually So that's actually the best way to contextualize it. So very standard. I mean, I don't think I did anything super crazy. Like my grandma would maybe tell me like some stuff outside, like she made me memorize planets and things like that, and she'd say it as if it was a song. I found out actually, I only realized a few months ago that like she'd tell me how to remember the planets. She'd go Mercury, Venus, Earth, like she'd sing it like almost like a song. And it actually just occurred to me like very recently that that's probably not an actual song. She probably just did that to me. Like, people probably don't actually sing the planet names.
But I mean, like when you're on your exam, your tests or whatever, I mean, powerful.
I still do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but other than that, so I mean, it depends how early you want to go. I mean, very early on, it was just very standard. I mean, whatever the core curriculum was for a public school in Ontario. I lived in the country, so actually, I went to one of these country schools, and there was definitely a difference in being at the country school versus the city school. It wasn't like, I know you interviewed Gath, and she was talking about like, post-Jim Crow era schools and stuff like that, like how they wouldn't have enough textbooks. It was not like that, but it was like, just like, I didn't even think when I came out of grade 8, so elementary school like goes up to grade 8. There was no middle school for me, and then you go to high school. I didn't know the formula for the area of a circle when I got to high school. So like, there was some stuff lacking, just but I don't know if that was a reflection of being in the country or just having a rough year, or who knows. But
yeah, well, I mean, I think you've compensated for that since not knowing the area of a circle, considering that like the other day you were answering questions about I don't even know, it was like it was a Gaussian integral, but like I think it was the gamertist in you were having a discussion about a Gaussian integral, and I was just like, it's a Gaussian, just look it up in a table. And you were like talking about like a derivation of it or something, and I was just like, oh wow. Like, it's so you've come some way from like, areas of circles to talking about Gaussian integrals and how to evaluate them without using a table.
But if you go to that conversation, you'll notice that I didn't want to go to circular coordinates because I have a hard time with circles ever since. So
the ominous circle always creeping up on you and all of your. I'm surprised too, because you even mentioned like when you first came to the community that you're into string theory, and now I know that like you'll never want to deal with like closed loop strings. You always want the open ends.
That's right. Yeah, I want only D brains.
There you go.
Yeah. I should just contrast though just one thing, because again, I'm just going to assume most people are American, although as I've learned from being in your chat, that's actually not the case. But like for example, as far as I could tell, maybe it's more common down here in Southern Ontario where most of the people are and like all the communities, but at least where I grew up, I don't think there were any private schools, or if they were,
oh wow,
nobody,
really?
That's not like a thing like in the United States. Like my impression in the United States is like, there's public schools and then there's like, elite kind of private schools. I think maybe there might have been religious private schools where I grew up, but
we have lots of religious private schools around me. I even went to one, and the education was like okay. The math and physics were excellent. I just got lucky. I had a great teacher who had who like retired there after teaching college level math and physics for a long time. So I just got lucky in that situation. But like the majority of the teachers didn't really have any type of education. So religious private schools were not like the elite private schools. They were just different. But I had elite math and physics. I just got lucky with that. But yeah, the majority of and because I played them all in soccer, I talked to all the other students and everything like that, and they were all the same. They were not like they weren't elite. But so did you have? So you did have religious private schools up around you, right? Or
there must have been. I think there had to have been. I mean, no. There must have been at least one, because I think I've heard it talked about, but like it wasn't like a common
the mythical.
Yeah, well, it's just like there's not enough like big enough community to have to necessitate things like that, right? So
sure. Yeah, there's a lot of big towns all around Binghamton University that makes it why we could have like 2 or 3 and not have an issue. But that's cool. So like when you were in high school then, how was your high school experience then? Like did you find that math was like your jam in high school, or was it not even at that point were you like really into math?
Yeah, so actually it's funny, when I got to high school, so I finished elementary school, and so like I said, I came from random country school. It was like probably one of the lower scoring ones if we had standardized tests. I should really just emphasize, like, we were really bad kids. Like, there were kids doing drugs on the playground in grade 6. Like, just, weed, which is legal, so I can say that. I guess it wasn't at the time. But
not for 6-year-olds ever. Or grade 6th grade. Grade 6, for sure. Not for grade 6 ever, still.
And yeah, so there was stuff like that. But then, like, getting to high school. So I went to like an average high school, but it was the newest one in the city, and that was lovely. So it was like a good quality there. So it's called Superior CVI. So I'm talking, positive things for Superior CVI. It was brand new, like 100% brand new. We were the first class to be there in grade 9. So I went there for all 4 years. It was very nice. As far as the education goes, it was, again, just like middle of the road. Lots of people do AP or IB. My school didn't actually have any AP or IB offerings when I went there until I got to grade 12. They offered one AP class, and it was English. I myself, I guess if we're going to just talk about me, because people aren't going to be sending their kids to Superior, I don't need to give it that good of a review. But I myself, I remember doing actually very well in grade 9 math. I remember when we got to the midterm or whatever it was, like halfway point when they sent out the first set of report cards, I had like a 99 and the teacher was like super ecstatic. And then we got to y equals mx plus b and it was just like a tank. My M was very negative, let's just say, if we were going to plot my grades. I had no clue what people were doing. Like it was so confusing to me, and just the idea of plotting a function was just why do you care? Like just move the symbols around, and I had no clue. X-intercept, Y-intercept. I could point to them, but I couldn't find them. It's that sort of thing. Yeah, I really aggressively turned there's actually a turning point. So in my high school career, so I did the grade 9 math, and I was still a good student. I'm not going to spin it as if I was failing everything. I was still doing very well, but what really changed my attitude about it was trying to do well in school was first what happened was I just met another kid, and he was doing this obscure thing with quadratics. He was just doing quadratics, but to me at the time it was very obscure. I mean, I was just failing lines, right? So it was bizarre, right? I'm plotting x and this kid's plotting x squared. Who is he, right? And I also knew he was in grade 9, and I was like, what is that? He's like, this is grade 10 math. And I was like, how are you in grade 10 math? He's like, you just take it. And so I just decided that I was going to start taking advanced year classes because I guess, it seemed cool.
You met a wizard.
Cool kid. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I had to learn what the wizardry was. And then I started taking advanced courses, and that just put me in with older kids. And actually one of the other things I distinctly remember is then when I was in grade 11 and I was taking grade 12 math because, I was taking the wizard route, as you can tell by the length of my beard. So I'm taking the wizard route, and I remember hearing people talking about this free tuition scholarship that was offered if you graduated with over a 95% average at my local university.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought, university is expensive. That's literally the only thing I know about it. And so I know what the requirements are. I said, if I want to go to university, I don't think my family can pay for it. We could have, but I just, that was my kind of impression. And then, I would have been fine, is my point.
Sure.
But I just said, I'm going to go for that. And then, things were really structured around that. And I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but another big thing that happened was roughly around grade 10, 11-ish, so roughly the same time, I just became very intense and goal-oriented about everything I did. I think it was largely related to this fact that I read this book. It was a psychology book. I just saw it in an ad online. I bought it. It's called You Are Not So Smart. I actually brought it with me here. It's on my shelf over there. And I don't know if it was... Yeah,
so let's recap. Let's recap really quick. You met a wizard, and then you bought a book that said you're not so smart. And everything, and now you study string theory and holography and topological aspects of quantum. Okay, I get it. I mean, you just had some very influential moments, I guess.
It was a sharp turn. I think of, I'm sure there was a, cascading of many factors, but that was very important. And this book, I don't know, it's a psychology book, and I'm very cynical now, so I don't know how much of it survived the replication crisis. I don't know how much of it is actually true, how much of it's politically motivated, but
sure.
I don't know if it was supposed to be used this way, but it's a book on biases, psychology, heuristics, things like that. And each chapter opens with some myth, and then the truth as predicted by or as described by like some actual psychological experiment. And for some reason, I like read it like a self-help book. And I remember distinctly going through, and every time I'd get to that chapter, I would like think about it in my head. I'd be like, wow, I really do that. And then I'd like go and I'd like try to correct that. And it like really changed so much about, just approaches to things, because like, but then I was also like obnoxious, right? Like, oh, this is a fallacy, like we're making right now, like we shouldn't be. And so I was probably quite obnoxious.
You were that guy in, sorry, that's just really funny to me.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about your extracurriculars, because I like to ask people this. And so did you play any sports? Let's start with sports, because I know there's music involved, so we'll get to that. But sports, now you're into weightlifting. When did you start that in high school? Or we'll just say, is it weightlifting or just like exercise in general? I'm really into weightlifting, but COVID has just completely ruined that. First, what ruined it, grad school made it take a dive. Yeah.
And then COVID does just completely, like, there's no gyms. Extracurriculars more broadly. I mean, as a really little kid, it was like just whatever my parents could cram me into: soccer, judo, things like that. I played hockey, obviously. I actually played hockey for a very long time.
Obviously.
Yeah. I was just looking at this the other day. If you look at the Wikipedia page called List of Famous People from Thunder Bay, it's like politicians this big, it's like musicians, actors, something like that, and it's like hockey, and it's like so I played hockey. That was actually really it as far as I was a kid. You did bring up guitar.
Yeah, talk about music.
Yeah, so I think I started playing around grade 7 or grade 8, and it is a direct consequence, a direct reflection of the fact that I played Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero.
That's not bad though. I played Rock Band. I played. I don't know if I ever played Guitar Hero. Rock Band was like way less technical, but you could do everything. I liked that. Yeah,
I played a lot of Guitar Hero. I was, I don't want to toot my own horn here. Video games,
no, toot away.
but I played a lot. Like I wasn't like a YouTube sensation or anything, but it was like, whatever, expert, this song, that song, like 5 stars, gold stars. That's like means that you like hit every note, that kind of thing. Like I just played it, and then somebody was like, "Oh, you should play real guitar," and I was like, "Huh."
Maybe I will.
Secretly, I wanted to play the drums because of Rock Band, like you said, because the drums were the coolest instrument.
The drums were the coolest, yeah.
Yeah, and so everybody wanted to play that, and but I ended up getting guitar instead. I think it was because I was largely too embarrassed to get the drums, but in hindsight, that was probably a very good choice because there's only one volume setting on drums, and it's loud.
And they are expensive. They are so expensive. As someone who played shows with a ton of shows with a drummer who like broke cymbals constantly, and it's like hundreds of dollars to replace them. It's wild. Clone Hero. What's Clone Hero? NC, is that another game? I don't know what that is. I feel like we'll have to Google it. NC, tell me what Clone Hero is. I'm just curious. Is it like I imagine it's around the same thing. Since it has hero in the name, it's probably like Guitar Hero, but I've never heard of it. But we need. NC says we need to do community tournament. I'm down with that. We'll have to figure out what it is though. But so you started playing guitar when you were young. Did you ever do anything? Were you ever in a band?
No. In fact, I was the exact opposite. I was the problem. So I mean, at least for my parents, because they were always like, "Oh, why don't you play in a band? You never play full songs." And it's like I was the kind of person who sat upstairs in their room and practiced sweep picking for 8 hours, and then it was just like practicing technique and scales, and had to be really fast. But you know what? If in my mind, if aliens ever came and invaded and challenged a random person to a guitar duel, and they challenged me, then we might do okay. But that was the only thing it was good for, because I couldn't play chords, I couldn't play full songs. I'm a bit facetious, but that's. Yeah.
You never really got into gear though. You said you told me earlier that you never were like a gearhead, because like my brother plays guitar. He's been playing since he was, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade, and now he's in his mid 30s with me, and he's like one of these guitar players who has like, I don't even know, he has at least 10 physical pedals, where like one of them is like 15 like different options, let alone all of the settings they all have. He's got the was it a talk box and like the preamp, like the preamp and the like the 4-speaker header or whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called, but it was always like he has so much stuff. I don't know the terminology, but he was always a gear junkie. Now more than ever. Now that he's grown up with a full-time job and stuff, he's still
once you have money. See, that's how I'm starting to feel. It's like there's a little more money. So I mean, it was really just a money thing, and I'd feel really embarrassed if I like went to my parents and it's like, can I get a $300 foot pedal? It's like, what does it do? Well, it makes my guitar sound like a spaceship or a laser gun. So
it's so worth.
and one of the other things, maybe this is why I'm not an experimentalist, is just fear of things. Like when you first start playing guitar, you kind of have this fear, like when you're tightening a string, you're like, it's going to snap.
Oh yeah,
it's going to explode my eye. It's 10 years later, and I still do that.
You're not alone. I do the same thing. It's terrifying. Especially the small thin ones. No, I have no faith in those. I have zero faith in those. But anyways. So cool. Do you have any aspirations to do anything with the guitar like that though? Like play in a band or anything like that?
Yeah, it was funny when my PhD first started. A guy in my building was like, had like the same interests as me, like kind of shred guitar and everything like that. But he had a bunch of friends who like wanted to play, even just screw around, like just rent out one of those practice spaces and just play really loud. And then COVID happened. He moved away. He bought a house. That sort of thing. So I right now
you'll have that.
So like time scale wise, I played a lot in high school. Obviously, I played like a little bit less in undergrad. When I bought my 7-string guitar, I like played a little bit more. But then like kind of when I hit grad school, it tapered off, and it really tapered off this year of my PhD. It's funny, you'd think with me being home due to COVID, I would play even more, but I actually play less because it's like now there's home to me just feels like for most people, there's this complaint that's like they can't do work because home, like work feels like home, but for me it's like the opposite. It's like I feel perpetual guilt that I'm not working while I'm at home. But as far as aspirations go, I would really I think I just want to get some structured playtime in to better appreciate some things, like
sure,
like just to appreciate like some more interesting concepts of like music theory and stuff like that I never really got to do before, and just structured playtime, play to a metronome. Don't just like open up Guitar Pro. I don't know if you know what that is, but like open up like software and just like jam along, stuff like that. But like to actually go and like, pretend I'm like a music student who's got to do this to pay the bills or something. But there's just no time.
So to get out of, not to get too far off the track, but like, are you planning on going into your office again soon to start working, to try to like maybe separate that home work life?
I'll do it, I guess, when people start to come back. I'm not going to be the first one to rush. There's a lot of grad students who've really wanted to go every single time that Perimeter opens. There are a lot of people who want to like go because like, I have a home office. Like I live in a nice apartment, so I'm fortunate to have all that, and I don't mind working at home. And I think there's a lot of people who just want to go and have a nice space to work. So in some sense, I don't even want to go just to like not clog it up for them. But I am very excited to spend my afternoons like after lunch not working and just, blabbing with people about physics rather than actually doing it. So
the door open time. The door open time is like a nice time.
Yeah.
I do miss the door open time. Unfortunately, like I haven't had an office around people in a really long time. Like I'm the only person physics student in the chemistry wing. Like a 15-minute walk from my from my department. So there's nobody near me. But I do miss the door open time. The door open time's nice. But cool. I mean, cool nonetheless. I want to get back to the topic at hand, which is let's move on to your undergraduate now. So where did you go to undergraduate school? You said so. Did this 95 G or 95 grade point average free tuition? Did that come to fruition? Oh, rhyming.
Yes, the tuition came to fruition. I have nothing else to follow that up with. I was thinking of another word, couldn't think. Yes, very good. So I did that. I actually ended up getting a different scholarship, which turned out to be slightly more than that. So they pay you. Oh. Well, they pay you. Like this isn't going to sound like a lot for Americans, but they pay you $7,500, and tuition at my university was $5,000. So approximately, like it depended on the program, but like that sort of thing. So there was like a little bit extra, and I guess implicitly that was supposed to be for like housing costs or something like that. So it did work out, and I did go to my hometown university. So to answer the question, I went to Lakehead University, which is my hometown university. It worked out. I kept the scholarship, so one of the things was I was going into undergrad actually with like a net gain in money each year. And again, it's not American numbers, so it's not like there's an extra zero attached onto everything, but like I was making a few $1,000s at the end of each year. And whether or not this is actually why I did it, I like to tell myself that's what made me treat school as a full-time job right from undergrad. Like I could kind of rationalize that like I was going to work. And like, not like I was going to work because like I'm making some money, and it kind of, if I'm tired and I had only worked 3 or 4 hours that day, it's kind of like, well, you should try to put in 2 or 3 more at least if you're going to rationalize treating this like a job. And it definitely changed my view on school, like how I approached it, because it was no longer like I was kind of, going there making this investment for a degree. It was kind of like I was just going there and getting a degree, and it was like, it was a radically different way to go to school. I guess it's not public, but I've spoken about this before in other places. It's like it's not even just something like because I was making a little bit of surplus, but it was actually like, for other students who had similar things, like scholarships that largely paid for their tuition. It was kind of like the same mindset. Like if you're going and you're paying $500 a year for a degree, it's like, it feels like a little bit different, I guess. Yeah. I guess I don't know because I've never done it. Like I haven't had the alternative, but it was,
there's I guess let me ask you about your undergraduate research. What was your undergraduate research in?
Yeah, so so
was that part of the requirement for the scholarship or anything, or was it sort of just like, oh, that's nice?
Yeah, so I don't know, it depends how far back you want to go with this undergraduate research. I mean, I can tell you, so first thing that happened to me. Okay, let me even back up a little bit more, because this is my chance to proselytize a bit. The biggest problem I think I've had in my post-secondary career is that I always just didn't have some really dumb piece of information put in front of me. So for example, I think there were a lot of advantages to going to my hometown university, like for example, this fact about like, scholarships were abundant, things like that. But, there's downsides too. I'm coming from a small university that most people haven't heard of, and it would have been a lot more beneficial for my academic career if I'd gone to a big university. And so basically the whole reason I went to a small university was largely because there was nobody to, just say, you should try to go to a good university if you can. Because, I didn't really think that there was any difference. And whether or not it's a good thing, there is. At least right now, there is. I mean, maybe in the time of electronic education, that'll change. But, there's a big difference if you go to my hometown university versus if you go to, Harvard.
Right.
And even if you're a good student and you try to make up those differences, that's fine. But still, on paper, you can't really express that to people, at least not in an obvious way. And then, so I guess the whole reason I brought this up was because I didn't know undergraduate research was a thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost the same story again in parallel. I didn't know undergraduate research was a thing, but I did the best in my first year of physics class because, I did very good in it. Rigid body rotation killed me, but I still did good. And randomly, I got recommended to the theorist professor as an undergraduate research opportunity. And I thought, this is amazing. This is very cool. I didn't know that, I guess there are people who know about this all the way in high school. They're doing research in high school at the end years. So that was my first research experience. He did quantum optics, so we did a lot of representation theory. He was like a mathematical physicist.
In optics. Interesting.
Yeah, so quantum optics. I mean, he started. It was representation theory. So he started originally in nuclear physics, there's very few people other than one of your previous guests who do nuclear physics. It's not as big as it used to be. Let's say.
Definitely.
The Cold War.
Well, sure. Yeah.
So
the Vicky Weisskopf was the big nuclear physicist of the time, and had lots of. I mean, there was a lot of people that worked with him and under him and stuff, but he was the one that was he headed up CERN and everything like that. And everybody knew him for his nuclear physics of the time. But nowadays, we don't really hear about Vicky Weisskopf or anybody. Paul Dirac was a particle physicist, not a nuclear physicist or whatnot. But they were all kind of in the same boat, studying the same thing. Very interesting. Yeah, it's. Was there a graduate program at the school?
There was. I think if you did physics, it was kind of like a joint physics and PhD or chemistry PhD program, and it was called material science or something. Yeah, it was dubious. Sorry, I kind of skirted your question because I really had an axe to grind with telling people you got to get somehow you have to go back in time and tell yourself things. Tell yourself these things. But anyway. Yeah, and then just after that, I found out that you could also do research at universities that weren't your home university, and then that was completely game-changing because I went to the University of Toronto, which is whether or not it is the best university in Canada is open for debate, of course, but it is definitely the biggest, most well-funded, and I did experimental particle physics there, so I worked with the Atlas group there. And that was just eye-opening, if not because of the fact that I went and saw what a big university was with tens of thousands of students, then because just the students who I met were focused on different things, had much different backgrounds than the other students around me who were kind of from the same area, that sort of thing, from all over Canada, all over the world, right? Friends from India, that sort of thing. It also showed me this is again part of my thing about, I didn't really know anything about universities when I went to university. It opened me up to the world of universities. I mean, it made me very aware of what kind of things are people learning at other universities? Does my university do that, right? And do I need to do that myself? Is that expected? So for example, just to make it concrete, right? My university didn't my university basically covered, by the end of it, if you actually boiled down the courses and actually measured how much you covered, you would actually only cover about 2 to 3 years of content in a 4-year program that would have happened at Toronto. And there were no graduate programs, so that was that was a big difference, right? And it made me aware of that, so that when I was going to graduate school or when I was thinking about higher education, it made me sort of contextualize how much do I actually know relative to, how much I should know, or that sort of thing. I don't know if that
I
makes
see.
sense. Maybe I'm just rambling.
I think it makes sense. There's definitely this. I mean, so we've spoken privately about this before, but there's definitely like I've come to realize that the on paper it looks different, and like what you were saying, after that was that like how does your school stack up in this field? Does your school study this? How does it stack up in this field? Like like each school kind of has like a outer reputation that matters broadly, but they also have like an in the community reputation that matters more. And it's the so like you might know like there might be a school that's smaller that's known for its GR program or something like that like is not going to get national acclaim and won't show up to everybody who's in the registrations office somewhere, but like if you're in the community of GR, you just know this school, the name of it, so like even like Cornell is a big condensed matter school, but like not a lot of people know that if you're outside the community. You have to kind of like be in the community of physicists to know that Cornell is a huge condensed matter school, has a huge department with many like of the top condensed matter physicists, so it's there's stuff like that. And I guess when I first started, I didn't streaming, like one of the things that I didn't talk about too much was how important that stuff is, because I think the importance of it is always going to be what do you call it, like the importance of what you do is always going to be most important to yourself. Yes. Like, so if you do good things, then that's important for you, but at the same time, like some people, in order to do the, really good things, you sometimes have to go to extraordinary places that have these reputations of getting into. And I don't think I nearly gave enough credit to that when I started streaming, but you and I have had many conversations, and I think you've kind of changed my mind about the importance of where you go and what you do. If you have these like sort of if your goal is to have like to be amongst the top,
Yeah, I mean, not to beat this topic to death, but just to summarize, so it doesn't seem like I'm a rambling, glasses adjusting like nerd. It's like a conceited nerd or something. It was. It's just. I guess I realized very quickly, and I wish it would have happened even quicker, that there's an aspect of the sociology of higher education that I wasn't being exposed to, and now I'm probably overly concerned about. And,
sure.
Yeah, I just wish I would have been more aware of it, and I hopefully if any message gets out, it's that. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it's looking back at this, I guess we can kind of, if you don't mind going off the script a second. Looking back at this, do you think that you could have gotten into one of these schools for undergraduate?
No, and it's because, so again, I think
you would have thrown up a Hail Mary for sure. Like that was that like you, yeah, but you,
yeah,
basing yourself against the competition.
Let me rephrase. So if you mean something like, could I have gone to specifically a school like Harvard or Princeton? There's no way. There's no way. Coming out of Canada. Well, first of all, I mean, I wouldn't have even known that was on my radar. And even if I did, like, I knew these places existed, but it was like, it was like just whatever, right? There's no way. I also just pragmatically didn't know things like the SATs existed, but also I would not have even had the scope of how much some of the students who are going to these places are working themselves and are being pushed. Things like I play 3 cellos at the same time, that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? But now, if you mean like within my country, I mean, I could have. I mean, if you put in 10 applications to the top 10 schools in Canada, I'm sure you'll get into one of them. But
I see.
Yeah. I should actually go back though, because I don't want to make it seem like it's all gloom and doom. I mean, 2 things definitely would have happened if I had gone to a big school. The first thing was I was basically told all through high school that as soon as I went to university, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. As soon as I went to university, I'd get
swear
my ass kicked, basically. And that actually made me very hopeless when I first went to university. Like I'd be like, oh, I kind of want to skip this lecture. I have like anxiety. I don't want to go. And then, cause there was like engineers in it who were in like third and fourth year, and like I didn't want to go, I didn't want to sit there, and so I'd like skip the class, and I was like, this university thing is kind of screwed anyway. And it really wasn't until I got that research offer that I decided like this is kind of in tension with my thing about treating school as a job, but it wasn't until I got that research offer where it was like a real boost. It was like, oh, maybe I can do this thing. And the other thing is, I think if I would have had my ass kicked too hard right in first year, if I went to a big school and there were kids who went to like elite private schools or something like that in high school from Southern Ontario, or like they were just like super smart or whatever, that probably also would have demoralized me a lot. So there was definitely a thing about like competing with other students at my small university, and kind of there being few enough of us that we like all knew each other, and like we could like take turns like Brennan got the top score on this test, but I beat him. Like it kind of made me feel like there was a fighting chance. And yeah, I definitely fear that if I would have just been launched into another city right away, it would have. And I would have been just trying to live, trying to cook, that sort of thing. I would have just sunk. I see. It's definitely a lot easier to do when you're old.
Yeah. How's grad school been for you? Now, let's say, so you got your master's at Toronto, right? Is that right? Correct?
No, I got my master's at PI, which is technically from University of Waterloo.
I got you. Yeah. I got you.
So that's good. I don't want to natter for too long, but maybe this part will be interesting to people. So I applied to graduate school 3 years. So the first year I applied, and I only applied to top schools in the US. I just want to, I feel this is necessary to interject because it's an important lesson to learn. I only applied to the top schools in the US because I basically said, if I don't get in anywhere, I really want to reevaluate whether or not I'm going to go to graduate school. And the only place I ended up getting in was Cambridge in the UK, and it cost a lot of money. And I backed out basically last minute because I was like, the entire reason I went to undergrad where I did was because of, was partially because of the money, and also partially because I didn't really know about anything else. But, the money was a big deal. The fact that it didn't cost me any money. I don't know why I'm going to basically spoil all of that by paying whatever it was, like 80K or 50K to go to Cambridge. But that also gave me an off year, and you don't need a whole year to think about whether or not you want to go to graduate school. So if that is your rationale, do not do it. Yeah, it is a very bad year, and if you think you're going to work that whole year like self-study or something like that, then you have the constitution of an ox, because it turns out it is not that easy. What really ends up happening is you roll out of bed, you eat cereal, you watch YouTube videos all day, and you just wait from meal to meal, and then you go to the gym for 3 hours, and then you come home and you do it again. So I applied, and then the next year I applied and I went to Perimeter. I got in there in part because I had a connection there. Actually, I was told that was the only reason I got in, explicitly by one of the people who did admissions there. So that was kind of scary. And then I applied again a third time to the US schools, but I ended up staying at PI.
So when you got in, so you did your master's at PI, and then you applied for a PhD at the States the year later.
I did. I did.
Okay.
But then I ended up staying with my supervisor at PI.
Sure.
I think, it's hard for me to say, but I think in hindsight that was the right choice. I guess I never answered your question, but yes, I did get my PhD or my master's at Perimeter, and I'm now doing a PhD at Perimeter.
Cool. What? Now, you don't. Do you teach?
No.
You don't lead any discussion series, or I used to call them discussion sections because that's what we call them in my school, but other people call them I don't remember. There's a bunch of different names where you have a group of students who you teach some sort of subject to.
No. So, I don't know. Right now, currently the answer is no. Some students actually do, but I am very lucky to not have to do that. My supervisor buys all of his students out of TA.
Oh, okay. So you just have you're on RA instead. You just have research assistantship.
Yeah, and then I have a government scholarship, so he doesn't even have to pay for me. So, but I'm going to use that to my advantage because if I want to take another year for my PhD, I'm going to make the argument that I was basically free already. So
there you go.
Yeah. So I should just add because I want to. What do you call it? Advertise for this. So the master's program at Perimeter is called the PSI program, and actually, it is nothing like what you would think graduate school is like. So what they do is they take around 30-ish students, usually from 20 plus different countries. They bring them all to PI. They pay for everything. They pay for housing. You eat all of your food at PI. They pay for room and board, et cetera, electronics, laptops, everything like that. So it's 100% covered. And they bring you there, and it's not like graduate school. There's no TAing, there's no marking. You just take classes for 6 months. It's very intense. Each class is only 2 or 3 weeks long. And
Wild.
You're like, how do you cover the same amount of material? It's simple. You just do classes every single day. But you take 2 at a time for 2 or 3 weeks. You can watch all the lectures online. So yeah, you do that. And then you do oral exams, and you do a lot of assignments and a lot of tutorials. So the way they describe it is it's physics boot camp, and that's basically what it is. And then, and in a way, what the PSI, so this is the Perimeter Scholars International Program. It happens at Perimeter, but technically you're accredited, so you get a degree from the University of Waterloo, and then you get a little certificate from Perimeter Institute because it's not a degree granting institution. In some sense, what it is it is the filter program if you want to work on a PhD with one of the faculty at PI.
I got you.
Yeah, so that was a very long way of saying that.
I almost applied to that actually.
It's free, so
for
I
my
encourage
second
everybody to do
year.
it.
I almost applied to that for my second year of graduate school, but it didn't work out for logistical reasons. Probably I was still cooking and everything, But
I encourage everyone to apply. It's yeah.
It was pretty cool, and it's not that far from where I'm at, so.
Yeah.
Driving distance at least. If you could.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, that was well before COVID, so.
I should stress again, it's free. So if you are in the chat and you are an undergraduate and you just want to apply, it is. And if you get accepted, it is totally worth it. You will find out very quickly whether or not you love physics or hate physics, because you will have no option but to have it shoved down your throat. So,
that's hilarious. You don't get a choice.
Yeah.
Let's move into talking about your research more specifically.
Sure.
I know a lot of people are kind of curious about this, and it's something that I have probably asked you a half a dozen times. But let's start with kind of the big boy, right? String theory. Now, you have explained to me a few times that what you study is not the traditional strings. The traditional strings would be something like, tiny filaments vibrating with vibrational modes equal to, being a particle of the standard model and beyond for other things like gravitino and whatnot, or graviton. Whoa, easy, Susie. So that's kind of like what the traditional string theory is, and then, working on where these strings vibrating in, some Calabi-Yau manifolds or some sort of compactification of dimensions. So tell us what exactly your interests are in string theory.
Yeah. So I've been rambling a lot, so I'm scared to take everyone down this garden path, but how far back should we go? Maybe it might be better with some, let's say, historical context. So, like you were just saying, you were doing your very good Brian Greene impression, telling me about Calabi-Yaus.
My little soundbite that I've just stolen from everybody.
I would never actually really tell another grad student I do string theory, or if I was getting interviewed for a postdoc, I definitely would not say I do string theory. So string theory basically started as a theory of strong interaction. So if you go and you watch Leonard Susskind's lectures, the theoretical minimum lectures, he'll tell you all about this because he was right there and he was doing it. So it started as strong interaction and naturally came out of things called like the S-matrix bootstrap program. So you can Google all this. I mean, that goes as far back as Heisenberg secretly. And then, it came into this time of Susskind and Veneziano and all this stuff around the strong force. And nowadays, or let's say, the way we view it nowadays is not really to do with the strong force. It's as a fundamental theory, like and it involves the theory of, like you said, these vibrating fundamental strings who are naturally, kind of the structure of them emerges at a very high energy, aka very short distance scales, and you might say something like the framework is known as string theory is very rich. It's rich enough to support low energy theories, like you were saying, that can produce gauge theories as well as quantum gravity. So that's what you're basically saying. At low energies, it looks like quantum field theory. Mm-hmm. So that's like the usual story of what string theory is. And that's kind of like how it progressed historically. It started as QCD, and then people kind of realized, it's this very rich framework. And I should stress, because there's a lot of naysayers, that right off the bat, people say like things like about, there's this thing about whether or not string theory has actually made any predictions. I mean, it has actually done at least one thing. It's not really a prediction, but right, your goal for a theory of everything is, you can think about it in a few ways. There's GUT, grand unified theory, which is basically like SU3 times SU2 times U1 all comes together into one gauge group. And then there's like gravity, and it's like, so here's GUT and here's gravity, and maybe quantum gravity, and then put them together, put both pieces together. That's called theory of everything, right? But it at least has quantum gravity in it. And there was at least a question before string theory about whether or not you could even make a theory of quantum gravity, right? So, quantum gravity is necessary, but, to stress that again, it's not whether or not string theory is the theory of quantum gravity that underlies our actual world. It's, can you even make one? And the answer, it turns out, like a nice UV-safe theory of quantum gravity, I should say, it turns out the answer is just yes. It's just objectively yes. String theory is at least one example. Even if it is the bosonic string, it's in 26 dimensions, it has a tachyon, it's at least possible. Superstring, superstring is in 10 dimensions, no tachyon, but the point still stands. It's at least possible in principle. So now, like, what does this have to do with anything? So the problem now emerges for the community, because you're at this point, you're like, okay, we have a theory of quantum gravity, and it's rich enough to produce particle physics. What are you going to do? Well, you do the obvious thing. You say, this is... string theory kind of came on the scene in, I think, the 60s. It was killed as a theory of strong interactions in 73, because that was when QCD was born. QCD came in 1973. So I think in the 80s was the first superstring revolution, the Green-Schwarz mechanism, Green-Schwarz anomaly cancellation, something like this. This is all technical blah, but it's basically to say, okay, it's viable now as a theory of everything. Yeah. So the first thing that you want to do at this time too, about SU3, about SU2 times U1, is you go and you want to look for the standard model in string theory. And so that's kind of what you were talking about Calabi-Yaos and all this kind of stuff. Like Calabi-Yaos would tell you, that you can get three flavors. One of the people in the community, Airsofter, is much closer to string phenomenology than what I am. And so he could actually probably tell you precisely what moving pieces do what. But just sociologically, basically what this means is that, the community is now motivated to basically say, okay, if we have string theory at very high energies,
yep,
and we know the standard model is down here, mm-hmm, how can we go from here down to here? And that was a major paradigm in like what you would kind of do in the 80s, the 90s. And then something kind of changed. And this could be because string phenomenology is very hard. It could be that it's just very hard. It's very hard. It's not hard to actually get the standard model from string theory. I think, it's actually really the opposite problem. You get too many standard models from string theories. There's like papers like 1 quadrillion standard models from F theory or something like this. So nowadays, so this is all to say, what do people do nowadays? A very famous high energy theorist once told me that what string theory is whatever the big popular names in the field are currently working on, who used to be string theorists. So, there's a bit of cynicism to that, but that is basically what it is. Like if you go Strings 2021 just finished last week. It was a 2-week program. It's an annual string theory conference. Very few talks were actually about strings. They were about all sorts of things, topological insulators,
which is crazy to me. That's crazy to me that topological insulators makes it in there, because like my introduction to topological insulators is not like, it's just not a string theory in any sense of the words.
Yeah, that's right. And so okay, if you take that very cynical view, it's whatever, big names from IES are working on, then you have an explanation. But there is actually a very good explanation for this. And it's basically that what string theory actually was doing in the meantime, especially with, you always hear about the connections of string theory to mathematics and this sort of thing, is it gave...
I can just do this. Oh, we're back. Look at that. All right, everybody. Hello, we are back. If you are just joining us, my guest is Justin, you can get more info here, but third-year PhD student, and I mean, like, he's been in our community for a long time, answering a lot of people, helping a lot of people answer questions about physics and stuff, and we kind of left off at a crucial thing. I'm sorry I got disconnected. If anybody has questions for Justin's !ask, a space, and then the question, and that will go into a separate queue where I can find it. Hopefully I didn't lose the queue. That would be a big bummer. I don't think I lost the queue. Now I'm terrified. Maybe I'll screenshot what I have just in case. Okay. Now, so where we left off was you were kind of connecting the topological insulators, I guess maybe like that field or whatnot, or like just the general fields to why it was more of like a relevant to string theory.
Yeah, and I feel like I was getting sucked into technical junk that doesn't really matter. So let me basically cut to the chase, which is that string theory is very good because it just taught us a lot of lessons about physics, which we probably wouldn't have realized as simply. So I was going to start rambling about supersymmetry, but really what I wanted to talk about was the fact that, like, there are quantum field theories, for example, with lots of supersymmetry. They have so much supersymmetry that we know 100% that, at least in no naive way, are they directly connected to the standard model, right? Like, you just simply cannot have more than n = 1 supersymmetry unless you're going to start getting very technical. Because of technical reasons, but they're still very interesting because they teach us lots of lessons about quantum field theories in general. So, like, for example, you might start to learn things about dualities. So, for example, you might find out that if you take one classical theory, so you write down a Lagrangian, everyone knows Lagrangians, for some classical theory, and then you write down a Lagrangian for a completely different looking classical theory. It can be 100% different. And you look at the quantum theory that comes from both of them, it turns out that they make the same quantum theory.
Okay.
And like, there are lots of examples of things like this, like dualities that come from string theory. Another example is holography. So everyone's heard about holography, but holography actually was proposed in '93 by 't Hooft. The paper is called something like Dimensional Reduction or something or other. And then there was another one in '95 by Susskind, where I think the term holography was coined. And these were like just statements about black hole physics. I tried to read them, but they're old and you don't really need it. And then what did string theory do? String theory comes along in '97 with Maldaceni's paper on the Largen limit of superconformal field theories. It's like the most cited paper in our field. It has like 19,000 citations, which is very, very big for theoretical high energy physics. And what he basically did was he took these two kind of philosophical, like hand-wavy papers by 't Hooft and Susskind, and he made them very concrete. He said, if you have type 2b string theory on this special thing, ADS5 times S5, it just means like a negatively curved space with 5 dimensions and then a positively curved space with 5 dimensions. Well, you guys know what a sphere is. I don't have to say positively curved space. Everyone knows what a sphere is. So if you put string theory on that, this type 2b string theory, whatever that means, the point is, it's all technical jargon that basically says he gave a very concrete realization of this holographic principle that was testable. The dictionary, this holographic dictionary, was very testable. You could match things on one side, this theory of type 2p strings and quantum gravity. You could match them to these things in this so-called n=4 super Yang-Mills. Again, whatever that means, it doesn't matter. But it gave very testable avenues to do these things. And that's what eventually became what's known as ADS-CFT. And nowadays, people do ADS-CFT without even knowing string theory. And you don't have to know string theory. And you don't have to. And so I guess the moral of the story is that, much in the same way that if somebody says, let M be a manifold, I don't know about you, but as soon as somebody says let M be a manifold, in my head, I'm secretly just thinking about like a sphere. Or like a lump, like the pony behind me. I'm not, I don't actually like
Similar.
think in my head. I'm not like, if somebody says let M be a manifold, my working example is never, real projective space or something like. I'm
right.
And so that's where string theory comes from.
It's extrapolated. So you basically take these ideas that are mathematically well defined in string theory, and you're extrapolating something into extrapolating something like. I want to say phenomenon because I think more like black holes. I know that a lot of string theory is made into black holes because they're kind of extrapolating this phenomenon using a well written mathematical process that happens in string theory, or we'll say well written theory in string theory. That's kind of where I got it from. What I'm getting from it, yeah. Cool.
And it goes both directions, I should just add, because I gave you an example. Holography is an example where the holography was kind of like this hand-wavy idea, and then people were like, is it realizable? And then it was like, oh, yeah, it is. You can do it in string theory. And Maldacena did it, but then it was Witten's paper the same year that came out after it and was like, this is holography. This is what Susskind was talking about. And it's like, wow. But it actually goes the other way, too. For very, very technical reasons, there is basically something that says, in string theory, there are basically no global symmetries. So there are gauge symmetries and there are global symmetries in physics. And in string theory, you do not have global symmetries. You can ask, could it be that no theory of quantum gravity has global symmetries? And it turns out that you can actually then show rigorously by physics standards that no theory of quantum gravity has global symmetries. There's some asterisks attached to that statement. You start to see how you can make you can start to make generic statements starting from these specialized things. And that's why at these string theory conferences now, what we're really seeing is we're seeing the academic offspring of string theory.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, thank you. I want to make sure I mention this. Thank you so much, Volcano Doc, for the raid. Welcome everybody who's coming in with Volcano Doc. Thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had a great raid. Tonight we have our moderator friend and guest, Justin Kulp, who studies. I don't even know how to say it now because of this, but the excellent explanation. Branches of string theory that are applicable to other things like topological quantum field theory and holography. But he's a third-year PhD student at PI. Thank you, NC, for posting that. But thank you so much for coming in with Volcano Doc. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. If you'd like to ask Justin a question, whether it's about string theory or graduate school or Perimeter Institute or about a different other type of field theory that, Justin's very well versed in many of the areas of mathematical physics, or as mathematical as as theory people get, I guess. So if you'd like to ask a question, ! Ask space and then your question. But yeah, so this is yeah, if anybody does have a question, do that. We're going to end up taking a break in a few minutes to before we get to the Q&A. But I have a couple more things I wanted to ask Justin. Namely, maybe, I guess this is a question that I was kind of more curious myself about. Were you, when you got to graduate school, were you interested in strings at all? Was that the main, because some people are I want to do strings, well before they get to graduate school. And then they realize that strings, like you said, might be this rich field where you're actually working on something like black holes or the shape of space, I know, is another one that kind of people get into this ADS-CFT thing where the things that people are very interested in is the, what's happening on the boundary of space, So is that something that you were you dead set on this string theory idea, or were you sort of I just am interested, and then you followed your nose and you ended up in these these overlaps?
So the short answer is no. I was very string skeptical all through undergrad. I loved Peter White's blog, for example. I loved it. I actually reached out.
Do you still love it? I don't ever read it anymore. I loved it when I was an undergraduate too.
That's
I
the
stopped
real
reading
answer.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real answer. I just am not in contact with it anymore. But so no, I am a convert. But I'm actually not.
Oh, you're talking about string theory. I thought you were talking about Peter Voigt.
No. But I should say, like, I strongly believe this thing that I'm saying about I actually, maybe this is not that controversial of a statement to make, for people in our age group, but I would not be too upset if the final theory of everything was not stringy. And I'm actually not that convinced, but I sincerely believe that should it be studied, or and the lessons that we've learned from it should be archived and disseminated, or at least boiled down into their fundamental constituents, so that we can, because those I think are the avenues to understanding physics more generally: dualities, holography, integrability, scattering amplitudes, bootstrap, all this kind of stuff. I think these are the kind of things that are that at minimum are going to be positive takeaways from string theory. And if it turns out to actually be the theory of everything, then again, Airsofter is going to win the Nobel Prize and not me, but that's okay. Yeah.
No, well, like, it's weird that we say stuff like this, because like people like Nemo refuses to say that he's a string theorist or that he does string theory, and he finds great interest in it, like everything else. I'm sure he finds great interest in many things, but like I don't know if that's still his case, because I haven't kept up with where he's at now and stuff, other than I know he's doing amplitude stuff. But like he was always dead set on saying that he was not a string theorist, but he worries about the same things, and he works on the same things. And it's like his goal was to try to, redo, I don't want to say redo, but like maybe look at quantum field theory under a different lens, and it's kind of interesting because it's like the I guess I don't really know how I was going for this, but I just think it's kind of interesting that like you have like these people who, like, some people are string theorists and say they're string theorists and say they work on string theory, and other people who swear up and down that they're not string theorists and they're working on the same papers or the same projects. And it's like, it's really funny to me because it's like some, like, I don't want to say, it's not animosity, but it's like a recognition of, like, I don't know, maybe different approaches or different allegiances or something like that.
Yeah. I'll add 2 quick points to that. So if somebody tells me that they are actually a string like a string theorist, and not just like the way I'm saying it to mean anybody that publishes on hep-th on archive more generally, I would imagine they are somebody who's doing either string phenomenology, so like the Swampland program, like Kumran Vafa and lots of the people in the UK and things like that. Or conversely, I would imagine that they are people doing perhaps an even rarer breed. There are people doing string field theory. And there were talks on that as well at Strings, but those people are far and few between. Like there was one PhD student leaving who is at PI since I've been here, who's done string field theory. So,
very good. Hold on, I think I want to make sure I didn't start a buzzing sound. I don't hear it. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I mean, that's good for me. I was just kind of curious about some of the things, especially like that was the. Let's close it off with one thing. Okay, let's close it off with 2 things. Firstly, what are your future ambitions with research? Like, what do you hope to, like, so let me be very specific. I've asked this to a couple other guests, and it's something that my advisor asked me that I think has like some meaning now to my goal. What problem do you want to be an expert in? Not necessarily solve, but what problem do you want to be an expert in when you're done with PI? Or maybe you already feel like you're an expert in there.
This isn't a research answer. But I think maybe it is. I think for me, I would like to understand better all of the things that Peskin and Schroeder got wrong, let's say.
Okay.
I would like to know what quantum field theory really is. Now that is a research program, and that's not going to be solved by the time I finish at PI. But there are just subtle points like that still, of things that I've been trained wrong. Like for example, this thing about what is a quantum field theory? Where does it come from?
Right.
Well, you open up Peskin and Schroeder and they say you write down a Lagrangian MathCal L, and then it's got a whole bunch of terms in it, and some of them get hats, and then you canonically quantize, or even you do path integral. And I mean, it just turns out that most quantum field theories don't have Lagrangians. And I would like to better appreciate the consequences of that. Because, I mean, what that's really saying is that there are theories that don't have classical limits. They're inherently quantum mechanical. And there's theories that have many classical limits. And I think just really understanding just simple things like that and trying to appreciate deeper what we mean by the space of all quantum field theories is really something I would love to I would like to even know where I'm wrong by the time I finish my PhD. I don't want to understand that space, but I'd like to at least know what I don't know.
That was always one of my goals before I started with this project, which was to kind of understand what's going on in quantum field theory at a deeper level, because I just felt like even at the minimal level that I have, I don't have a working knowledge of Peskin and Schroeder, but even the knowledge from the many other books that I've picked up to read, I feel like it's not a complete theory. It has a lot of holes. Are you my biggest thing that I was concerned about, and now that I see people working in it, I validate that concern is the inner workings of loop diagrams. Is that something that you're worried about, or are you okay, that will just sort of take care of itself? Those diagrams with the circle and then the lines through the circle, and it's just some stuff happens. Does that bother you? Because that bothered me terrible, and now there's people who are working on it, which makes me feel sort of vindicated.
I would say that I'm not super concerned about that at the level that it's a super technical problem. If there's look at this weird thing that happens at 8 loops, isn't that scary? I'd be whatever. But on the other hand, I think there is I can kind of relate it back to my other point, which is I always feel like I don't appreciate renormalization enough. And roughly what's happening with, tree level diagrams are basically related to the classical theory. I mean, when you're writing down tree level Feynman diagrams, you're basically studying the classical theory associated with the quantum field theory.
Right.
So in a sense, once you start adding loops, that is when a theory becomes quantum. So it's almost related to my previous point, which is that all this stuff about renormalization and UV divergences, all this kind of stuff. This is all what starts to appear when you just make things more complicated by one little bubble, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that's so. In that sense, I think that's a good problem. And I should also add, Peskin and Schroeder actually don't get anything wrong. They just misguide you about how big the world really is.
Yeah. So. Well, it's like what you said about the name is slipping my mind. I think it's with an S. About how he won't finish writing a quantum field theory book because he doesn't feel like it's finished. Cyberg.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. That explanation makes sense to me, because I always felt like there was something kind of missing from it. And and we say this, but we don't say it to cast any doubt on the field theories that we have. We have field theories that are finding the, magnetic moment of an electron to 13 decimal places. That's good. That's a good theory. And all of this cross scattering, every inner working of a, of a baryon or meson. I mean, we have all that. And or I mean, we are even nailing down to this day certain aspects of what is it, pentaquarks and stuff. We're the more data we get on the tetraquarks and pentaquarks and things like that, the more we're going to be able to nail down those field theories. So it's we have a good field theory, but there is just these fundamental things that don't make sense that we're interested in, and that ultimately you're taught to just sort of do it. But at the same time, you're just like, okay, I'm kind of curious as to why we're doing it. But
it's just like, so to say your exact point in a completely different way, or a slightly different way, is it's like it's working really, really well. Like field theory and high energy physics and all this stuff, it works really, really, really well. And that's super great. And there were people who said, it's basically understood. And then you start to come across these not so exotic beasts with all these exceptional properties. And you're like, it's like as if you just studied zebras your whole life. And then you came across the first animal that wasn't just all stripes. You're like, oh, this is, it's
unusual.
So it's like, yeah, exactly. Right. And you don't realize actually how impressive, or how narrow your focus was just on zebras to begin with. Or in Canada, they're called zebras.
Zebras, right. Zebras.
Yeah.
Or is it zebras or zebras?
Yeah, Zed. Must be Zed.
Zebras. Is it, wait, what about the after this? Are you saying Zed is in like a long Z, but in, like, cause is that what it is? Because there's no D.
I was just lying. It's okay.
Oh, I get it. Z. Okay, because there's a Z and an E makes a Z-E sound, and then if you were to do, just stop now. This is an excellent segue into a break. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break or so. If you'd like to ask any questions, now is the time to do it. So ! Ask, followed by a space and your question. And then we'll add it to the list of questions. We got some really good questions here to ask Justin when we get back. And then after that, we will be playing a game against, you will be playing against Justin and I. We're going to team up. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good, I think.
Archive versus Snarchive. No.
Yeah, Justin wishes. Because I could say that our team would comfortably crush you. But our team wouldn't really be an equal team. But anyways, yes, Eric doesn't get jokes. We know. Thank you, Cry. I appreciate that. Anyways, everybody, we're going to take 5. We will be right back. My camera's all screwed up, so we'll just deal with it. I'm not going to bother with it. So anyways, look at this black screen for 5 minutes. We'll be right back. Everybody, we are back. Are we ready for some Q&A? Okay, so let's see here. We have a handful of questions that are very good. So let's see about getting these questions answered. Tropical Geek says, I love Justin. We need more. Justin's fantastic. Justin is, I couldn't say enough kind things about Justin. And he's dedicated a lot of time to helping physics people in our community. So We all really appreciate that very much. Airsofter's question comes up first. What are your favorite QFT, string theory, and GR textbooks? I warn you now, this might start a fight. That's Airsoft's words, not mine.
Okay, first one was QFT.
Yeah.
Let's see. I actually think the first half or whatever third of Peskin is so bad that you actually shouldn't use it, and you should go use Schwartz.
Whoa!
And then,
yes.
I mean,
controversial. Let's go.
So that's that. But then once you get to the second half of Peskin, or the second third or whatever, like once they start renormalization and path integral and non-abelian gauge theories and all this kind of stuff, then you should go back to Peskin and Schroeder. And it's like, maybe they just didn't know what was going on with canonical. You just shouldn't learn canonical quantization anyway. So, really it doesn't matter. So yeah. So I guess Peskin is the standard safe choice. As a reference, everyone says Weinberg. Problem is, of course, with Weinberg is that it's so
referencing what exactly?
Yeah, I have like a thing here, and it's oh my god, the notation is so bulky, and it's completely
Weinberg.
wild. Yeah, Weinberg. Let's see. Z is a good reference if you want a quick reminder of something. So that's quantum field theory. If you're willing to go even slightly further, so you may notice that I keep my physics books that I never use, but I brought anyway with me to my house here in Waterloo. They're just like right there. So that's like where Griffiths is and stuff like that. The textbooks I really like Weinberg and Polchinski and things like that, they're right here. But under my desk, so that it's never more than like 6 inches from me, I actually carry this book, which is the conformal field theory book. So that's not exactly quantum field theory, but this book is, you need to know every single thing in this textbook, but never ever read it, if that makes sense. So you must absorb every lesson, but you are never ever allowed to read it because it's 900 pages. So that's right. Everyone should have a copy.
Mine's a little farther out of reach.
Yeah, they should give them out right away. So, like as soon as you're born, you're given your birth certificate and you're given a copy of differential scope. GR, I actually don't have strong opinions on GR. I used Carroll in my relativity course, and then once we got in PSI, so that's the master's program, once we used Carroll, but then we used the professor's own notes, which were supplemented from other things. And then when we got into gravitational physics, which was like advanced topics in GR, we took it with Ruth Gregory, and she is brilliant, and she just just said whatever came to her mind, I'm sure.
And it was correct.
Yeah, but if you're looking for more meaty differential geometry, I keep like books like Nakahara's Geometry, Topology, and Physics.
I have that somewhere too.
Or Baez has a book called Gauge Theory, Gravity, and Knots. So if you're just looking for the physics introduction to advanced math, that's that. I've always wanted to read Wald. It's on my to-do list, but it's just like it's literally on my book to-do list, but I'm never going to get to it. And then I do want my own copy of the gravitation book. I've heard there's lots of good just anecdotes and fun facts in that book. String theory, the obligatory answer is Polchinski. It's probably Polchinski. I have the book. So this is Polchinski. This is where he starts with bosonic strings. In volume 2, he covers superstrings. There is a famous 2-volume set by Green, Schwartz, and Witten, and that is on superstring theory, and that is actually seen as like the best book to learn superstrings. I mean, of course, people are going to say it because Ed Witten is one of the authors. The only downside to that book that everyone will tell you is that the book doesn't cover D-branes, and Polchinski does, because Polchinski, first of all, happened after D-branes, and secondly, Polchinski invented D-branes. So, D-branes are in Polchinski. And D-branes aren't just like slightly important to physics, they're like very important. Like, they're just as important as strings. They're literally just as important as strings, because I was rambling about dualities earlier. They are strings. You don't know that, but they are literally solitonic configurations of strings. So at least some of them are, like NS5 branes are string, like solitons of strings. So they are literally strings in some different classical limit. So yeah, that's that. And then of course there is this one that people sometimes like, string theory textbook. This is string theory and M theory. That's Becker Schwartz. So the same Schwartz that wrote the Green Schwartz-Witten with.
He sold out.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote a second one. Can you believe? And these are the Becker sisters. Actually, one of them passed away just in the past year or two. I was looking at her memorial page. It was quite sad. But anyway, this book is very good and modern, but there is a problem with it. It's that they cover so many topics that it's surface level. So what I think you should really do is you should suffer through Polchinski, and you should go through it. It's like dirty. There's lots of details. He wants you to do all these elaborate calculations, and then you'll come out of it. You'll come out all dazed and confused, and then you go to Becker Schwartz and you find out what just happened to you.
There you go.
So that's my answer.
Nice. So Puzzle Gamer asks, I've always wondered if it's basically useless and a waste of time to try to think about physics and try to understand it without knowing higher mathematics. So that's a question. Is it useless to know without understanding higher mathematics?
No, but so let me specialize in my answer just to high energy theoretical physics, because that's the area I could probably have the. Look, Eric doesn't care at all. Look at him. Oh my gosh. We could say anything about him while he's gone. Oh,
I'm right here. I'm right here.
So let me specialize just the high energy theory. No, you don't have to be a mathematician. In fact, there's like a pride in the community of being like, I'm not a mathematician. Like, I don't do proofs. I don't do like rigorous definitions, none of this stuff. So no, it's not necessary, but you are going to have exposure to a lot of it. With that said, there are people, like very famous people in the community, who are right not because they used mathematical insight and they, like manipulated symbols and got the right answer necessarily, like rigorously. Like people like Steven Weinberg, Leonard Susskind, and Gerard 't Hooft, and Ed Witten. Even though Ed Witten's seen as like a mathematician, these people very clearly have deep physical insight where they can make arguments that make intuitive sense. It's not just about this sort of left-hand side equals right-hand side sense. It's like a truly, the picture they give you is concrete and understandable. So it's not necessary. But now you'll also notice that those people have extremely good mathematical background anyway, and so they would have been fine regardless. And I also listed people who are very, very exceptional physicists amongst physicists. So it might just be that what makes those really good physicists is that they had both. So I don't know where you land if you don't have any mathematical background. I don't know where you would land.
I see.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, let's see. So Perk asks, are you observers?
I am one single observer.
I too am a single observer.
Well, it depends, because right now I'm like one, and does this count as a different one if I just open this eye? It's hard to tell. So if I open both eyes, am I two observers?
Well, are you making a measurement with each individual eye?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
I don't think so. I think the measurement happens through both eyes, right?
Okay.
A single measurement.
Sure.
Are we measuring each photon that's entering from our peripheral? Is each photon entering a measurement?
Maybe they mean, are the two of us together observers, plural?
We are, but are we made up of multiple observers? We'll get back to you. Next question from Puzzle Gamer again. Hey, maybe Justin has an idea about what seems to be a problem that needs to be explained about the need for a detector to bring particles out of superposition and why we have particles at all given that need. So, maybe let's, I guess, stick with the observer question, or the observer question is, why are there observers that bring particles out of superposition, and why we have particles at all? That's a much deeper fundamental question. I'm making tea right now because I got to kick this cough. That's why I'm getting up. So you keep answering this question. Good luck.
Okay.
I'm right here.
Oh, geez. Let's see if I can even remember. One of them was something about why are there observers?
Yeah, why? So, like, basically, like, why... Why are there observers that need to observe things? Let's just stick with that. Let's stick with that question. Why are there observers?
Well, you see, I can spin it into something if you maybe say, why are observers people who observe things? Like, why does it collapse the wave function or something like that? And then I'd be like, that actually, what I've learned from coming here and listening to Sean Carroll is you don't actually have to believe that. You can go with like many worlds and then nothing collapses or something like that. Why are there observers? I don't know what that would turn into. So it's like saying like, what if we try to make it overly mathematical so we can analyze it. Let's say states are vectors in a Hilbert space, and like an observable is a Hermitian operator. So you're kind of then asking, why do Hermitian operators exist? I don't know, because vector spaces can have, there's Hermitian operators and there's a natural action of Hermitian operators on a vector space, but then that's not very satisfactory because you're basically asking me, why does that mean anything in reality? And, I don't know. Then you see, I can't spin it into anything.
So what about, let me ask you kind of like let me ask you a question that I'm curious about now. Why do we have superposition? I'm listening. I'm getting tea.
I feel like you're trying to trick me here. Why do we have superposition? So, it depends what your starting point is. Like, if you're asking me why is the physical world described by quantum mechanics, I can't tell you that. Take that up with higher powers. That's above my pay grade.
That's exactly what I was asking you.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Like, why is there quantum? So Puzzle Gamer asked this, that's sort of the same thing. That's along the same lines. What was the first detector? Like, what was the first detector in the early universe? Like, we talked. I think Puzzle asked this question last week, or someone asked this question last week about to Olivia about like what was the first measurement.
I think I had an answer for that at the time, which I thought was okay, but it probably means nothing. So first of all, this is not really a place where I'm an expert. I don't. So, I guess there has to have been something that was measured first. I don't know if there had to have been anything profound about it.
Right. No, 100%. I think that was exactly the way I thought about it. And that was the words that I couldn't think of. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those were the words I couldn't. It doesn't, like, an interaction's an interaction. An interaction's going to cause a collapse of a wave function if it's if you're depending on your interpretation of quantum mechanics. So if your interpretation has collapses, then interactions can lead to collapses, depending on what the interaction is. So this, I come at it from a very quantum computing point of view. Like, interactions are the devil. Like, decoherence it happens from interactions with the outside system. So now you have a universe which is a little bit different because it's closed, right? The universe is a closed system. So the fact that the interaction is internal, I think that has a little bit of a harder thing to convince, but at the same time, like, I still just extrapolate to the same thing, like that there's an interaction that happens that causes some sort of action to happen, and regardless of whether or not it's documented doesn't make it a measurement.
Well, we should also say what we're not saying, right? Like, I could be talking completely out of my ass here, but let's try our best, okay? Let's try our best to do it on the fly because we don't know the answer clearly. And the question is, so let's even see if we can agree on what question we're asking. So at the start of the universe, there's some wave function of the universe that's some vector in some gargantuan Hilbert space.
Yep.
And we're not actually saying anything about that wave function collapsing or anything like that. That's for sure.
Right.
So now you're basically saying because now you're basically saying, okay, that wave function happens to describe, I don't know, things zipping around in the early universe or whatever, like however you want to conceptualize the early universe. And you're basically asking, what was the first measurement? And I don't actually know if that's even 100% well formed, because then by that point you're kind of looking at subsystem. I don't really know. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So, yeah, maybe this is an advantage of having a math background, is I can just say there's not enough rigorous definitions for me to make a conclusion.
Yeah, Puzzle, feel free to share it on the Discord or something. It'd be interesting to see your thoughts on that. Okay, next up is Airsofter. Are there any areas of physics that you wish you knew more about?
Well, the cheap answer is all of them. I would just love to know more.
That's
everything.
cheap. Yep.
Yeah.
Give us a good one.
It has to be physics, right?
Yeah.
So.
Say
no, I'm basically an expert. No, I'm just kidding. So I would always love to. So my fields are very closely linked to condensed matter. I would always love to have a deeper appreciation of what the hell they're talking about, like that, like spin liquid. I'm like, ew, like what are you talking about? Spin liquid. I can't even say it.
Ew.
I can't say it without spitting.
Fermi C? What's a Fermi C? I don't know what a Fermi C is. It was like literally all my thoughts during this last semester. It was like, okay, so a Fermi C. Okay, I got that. All right, so now go to the Fermi level. Where's the Fermi level? It's at the top of the Fermi C. Oh my goodness. Would you quit it?
Every once in a while, I get this sort of hankering for I'm like, oh, I wish I had a better appreciation of experimental physics, but that goes away quickly. Like I just drink some water and eat some food, and
I snap back to reality.
Okay, but serious answers now. So like condensed matter is one that would probably enrich me the most in terms of my own research. In terms of not research, I think I'm interested in quantum information. I should probably have paid more attention in your quantum information streams. There'll come a time when I'm no longer in academia and I'm just reading books for fun, and I think I'll probably read Nielsen and Chung. Yeah, so I think quantum information is probably the big one. It's very clearly important, and it gets at some things which I secretly loved. Like I secretly loved in undergrad. I actually didn't do a physics undergrad. I did a math undergrad. I started in physics.
We left that out when we had the conversation. I mean, many people in the community know that, but we left that out.
Yeah, but I loved logic, computability. I loved that sort of, like, I was probably so obnoxious. Like, you know, if my proof couldn't be checked by a computer, then it wasn't, like that sort of thing. Like, just, snobbery and purity was very important for some reason to me, and so secretly, quantum information could be the route back to that. And I think there's another thing which I've appreciated from Sean Carroll's podcast, which is great. I think everyone should listen to it. Is just emergent phenomenon, physics, applications to other things. Like, I'd love to just know what econophysics was about. But you see, this is secretly me saying I would love to know more about economics and evolution and biology and that sort of stuff. And I'm just secretly attaching the word physics so that I can answer Softer's question.
So did you listen to the one about Presskill?
Yep. Yeah.
That was really good. If you like quantum information, I thought that was like super like, you didn't like learn a ton, but you learned about like what an expert thinks about the field. And I think that was really cool. Cause like, I don't have any idea coming into the field what the experts think. So just to have like an hour and a half of what, like the like leading expert just talk about what he thinks was like super illuminating for me.
To know the direction and the motivation. And I appreciated, I appreciated his radical conservatism on the field, because this was one of my own questions that I asked a long time ago when you had on a quantum computing person, which was, I couldn't understand the commercial success why, for example, Amazon would be interested in quantum computers, other than just this promise of, well, we didn't know what regular computers were for, and then we just built them. But I could kind of, like I was saying at the time, I could kind of naively extrapolate. If I can just do calculations really fast, it's very obvious to me what that there must be something I can do, but at least for quantum computers, because I don't understand them enough, and I know that somehow the actual specialized tasks which are actually improved by a quantum computer, it's not clear to me that actually being able to perform those tasks is going to make anything better. But I'm surely wrong, but I just would love to have just somebody say, like, no, we're going to be able to solve this problem really fast, and then we'll build all of the architecture of our entire economy on just solving this problem really fast, and then I don't know if that makes sense, but I would just like to hear anyway. Preskill was very conservative about that, and it was great. Yeah.
And I agree. Like, I will definitely be thinking about the things he said moving forward, and when I talk to people about it publicly, because it's like, I mean, like when an expert says something and like you just believe it because been doing it since like the 90s, and like he has such a a vast understanding and knowledge of it. And I agreed with almost everything he said anyways. It was just like he says it so nicely, just from thinking about it so much. Puzzle asks a very interesting question. Puzzle Gamer says, I always hear about that strings vibrate, but I never read about where they get their energy to continuously vibrate, like associating energy with vibrations, much like a phonon vibration. Like what, like, is it under the same, like, I don't even know how to go off of that. Like, we know vibrations as via phonons. So how do you talk about a vibration of a string that continuously vibrates?
So there's... Okay, let's see. There's kind of two questions here, and I'll try to answer them both, and maybe it'll imply something about something. So first things, when people say that strings vibrate, roughly, if I think about, like, if I just use as in my head as an example, please spare me the technical crucifixion. If I think about like something like a bosonic string, what they're basically just saying is that when they say it vibrates, is they're saying like there is a state that can be excited of this string where it's just like a string, and there's like one where it's got like one harmonic and then two harmonics. You're basically building like I don't know. Am I allowed to say Fock space? So if you're allowed to say Fock space, right? Then there's basically towers of bosonic operators that can be built up, and then there's also a continuous variable, which is basically like the momentum of the string. So, and then so there's the momentum of the string, the center of mass energy of the string, which is like it flying through space, and then there's also I could do that. So it's flying at you through space. It's some momentum p. So that's one of the labels on a state, and then one of the other labels on a state is like n1, n2, n3, and it's basically saying like this many modes of this type are being excited, that sort of thing. So yeah. Okay, so that basically tells you what they mean when it's vibrating. It's like literally vibrating in as much as a quantum field is vibrating or something like that. There's states that can be excited. Now you ask, where do they get the energy to do this? I think the correct answer is that I should just say the same place any other physical system gets the energy to do it. It's just, came from somewhere. There's energy for these things to, tunnel into one another, transition, split off. I mean, it's I don't actually really know how to answer that question. Like, if you're asking where the original E0 of the entire universe came from, I don't know how to answer that.
Right. But they have energy. Yeah, they have energy. They transfer energy via interaction, and that energy transfer is what dictates the mode of vibration. Yeah,
but it's not like there's some they're not like little perpetual motion machines. I mean,
sure.
That's all I'm saying.
The universe is a perpetual motion machine.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that, but yet to be proven. I don't know if that was a satisfying answer. Hopefully that was satisfying enough for you, Puzzle Gamer.
So we have a user named Shane, who is Justin's dad, and says, "What kind of beard lotion is my boy using?"
I use whatever the highest rated one is on Amazon. For an oil, I use just whatever the Costco conditioner is to condition it. That keeps it soft and healthy, and it's gotten a lot healthier since I've done that. The beard is not normally me, as you can tell by the poster. It's my COVID project.
I've never heard a beard described as a COVID project, but some people take up like piano.
I will say, I will go out of my way, hopefully I don't get sued, I will go out of my way to say I bought some top-rated cedar one, cedar beard oil, cedar scented beard oil.
Well, lumberjack. You're going for the lumberjack aesthetic there.
That's what I thought, and I was like, I'll
Yeah.
wear it on special occasions, and I'll wear my plaid and everything like that. And like, if we go out to a restaurant, and see, you're laughing, but see, the sad part is this part wasn't a joke. And so that was my thought, and I put it on, and I have worn it literally twice. And the best description that I could give is that it basically smells like 2 Christmas trees, when at it. It's not a pleasant smell.
A sweaty Christmas tree. Got ya. That's a riot. There you go. So don't buy the cedar. Don't say cedar lotion.
Cedar. Or if you do, let me know what brand, because I need my lumberjack outfit.
So this one was from Mahjong, who says, "Is there a link between string theory and loop quantum gravity?"
Yeah, great question. So, short answer, I don't know. Medium answer, I think this was a hope for a long time. I think this was a hope. I think prominent members of the community really hoped for this. I don't really understand the technicalities in what way they thought that there was a relation. Lee Smolin is at Perimeter, who people may know as a founding father of loop quantum gravity. He still talks about it as if there's hope, but for example, Ed Witten, I don't think there is. He thinks there's no hope. Like if you ask him what is loop quantum gravity,
he's been very verbal about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if what I'm saying is true, but I'm pretty sure Ed Witten wrote a paper in the early 2000s or something like this that basically pointed out how there was a problem with loop quantum gravity that was not resolved, or like people thought was resolved and wasn't resolved. I could probably find it if I Googled for it. I'm not going to do that now. And I don't know. It's not very, there's an infamous, not famous, infamous physics blogger or former physics blogger who is known for being very aggressive and posting a lot on Stack Exchange. So that'll probably identify this person.
Yep.
And I think whatever you think about them, let's sideline that. But let's just say, I think they also thought loop quantum gravity had a relationship to string theory. And then some switch flicked. Maybe it was when Lee Smolin wrote his book, or maybe when something happened. I don't know. But I know that person also changed their stance. So I think
180.
right now, I think right now there is no hope. There is no obvious hope or even naive hope to connect loop quantum gravity to string theory that has any legs to stand on. I should add that I don't know if it was recorded, but if it was, it would be on PIRSA, PIRSA.org, which is the Perimeter Institute Recorded Seminar Archive. And Lee Smolin gave a talk on loop quantum gravity to the high energy group, and he talked about a review of loop quantum gravity, and that was very interesting. So if that is accessible, people should go to it. But I'm sure there's other places where Lee has talked, where he talks about current problems in loop quantum gravity, current advantages versus string theory. So that's kind of to the opposite of your point, but I think that's also interesting. So it's not as clear cut as some people would have you believe.
So Perk asks another question. Perk, you might need to help me with this one because I'm not 100% sure about it. Does the observer break the symmetry of the observed? But I'm not 100% sure what Perk is asking in that question. Like, does it add to, I don't know, maybe it's a question about entropy? Because, like, you have all of these observed states. If you observe more states, are you breaking an underlying symmetry to that? Like, it almost kind of feels like an entropy question. Like, you're adding more, you're decohering more systems by continuing to observe.
Yeah, I don't have sharp answers to these quantum mechanics questions, so I apologize to anybody who asked them or has asked them and they haven't been answered yet. But I could try to imagine different ways to make that question sound like something that that I could start to think of an answer to, like that would be more concrete, but I just am scared it might not be what they meant. Like, so for example, here's one for you, Eric. so I have spin up and spin down. So I have a two-state system, and then I prepare a wave function in, like, 1 over square root 2 up plus 1 over square root 2 down. Okay. To me, it seems like there's kind of like this symmetry that's like a flip symmetry of the quantum state. But it seems like if I measure, I collapse that state. So is that maybe a sense in which as like a Z2 symmetry is broken by measurement?
Like, I guess it depends. It's like, this is one of the things that like Preska was talking about, where like you have to be careful the way you pose this question, because if you do a single measurement, it sure can look that way, right? But in order to do something quantum mechanically, you need to do thousands of measurements, right? And then it doesn't look that way anymore, right? Like that's when you recover the conservation of probability, right? Like, so unitarity is that conservation of probability, and during a measurements are notoriously non-unitary because they do that. They stop a probability. Each individual measurement will stop, will destroy the probability, and you'll get a single state. Like, you'll get a classical bit. So then how do you talk about it quantum mechanically? Well, once you do thousands of these measurements, you recover that unitarity, which is one of the reasons, again, why we say that, like, many worlds is unitarity for free, because everything does happen probabilistically. Like, everything has happened probabilistically and has, caused these superpositions of these waves, of the, superposition of these branches of the universe, and you're just taking and preserving all possibilities, so it does save that conservation of probability. But again, if you just do this one measurement and you're not worried about many worlds, you're straight Copenhagen, and you're just saying, I'm taking one measurement, then yeah, you're going to break that symmetry of conservation of probability, at least as far as we understand it, because that's what unitarity is and preserves, and measurements don't do that. So there's that. I mean, like, but again, that's like one of the things that Preska was talking about, is like, you just have to be careful about talking about it, because you're basically trying to get a classical thing out of a quantum system, and we can't do that and preserve things like unitarity, or make it, or preserve probabilities, or get an accurate experiment. I mean, ultimately it comes down to, how can we get the most accurate experiment? And if you know that you're going to break that unitarity, then you can't do a single measurement. You just know that the sample size of one is just a terrible experiment. So along those lines, that's kind of how you conserve that probability and conserve that symmetry. And I guess that's kind of like the symmetry that most people think about when they think about quantum mechanics, and like the interpretations, because people want to hold on to that thing. People want to hold on to that, and it's not it's not there if you take a sample size of 1. That's why everybody gets confused and like thinks it's this mysterious thing. But again, the problem is the question is weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully that was the right interpretation of the question. And I think this is a great, I mean, again, apologies to everybody whose question I tried to answer and either was incapable or did not even answer the right question. But I think this shows also the limitation of, trying to pose answerable physics questions in words, is lots of the times words just, it's hard to really say what you mean. I mean, I guess you do science communication all the time, and popularizers also talk about this all the time. I mean, you just can't do justice to, I promise you physics works. I can't always...
It's easier to craft questions than it is to answer them, because you can craft all sorts of questions that don't make sense physically, or that are using a different train of thought than we use in physics, So there's all sorts of things that, like, you can craft all sorts of questions, but whether or not they are questions that give insight to the physical system is a different thing. And this is one of those things that doesn't necessarily give physical insight. If you want to take one measurement of one quantum process, then you're not going to get physical insight from that. You're just going to get a spin of a particle. So
yeah, but I don't even want to say that, like, I mean, I know that's not what you're saying here, but I don't even want to imply that's necessarily what's happening. Like, you kids ask better questions the next time. Ask questions I know the answers to, but it's more like, it really shows just how hard it is to ask a sharp question. I mean, in fact, if you go to this is a tangent, but if you go to some of my academic older siblings, if you will, if you go to their PhD theses and read it, one of the things that I noticed is very common, or just other people, is lots of people always say, I thank my supervisor for like not giving me the answers, but telling me which questions are, the right questions. And I think that's like, it's so easy to get trapped in just like a thing where you're just like talking in philosophical circles, and it can sometimes,
it's very easy. I used to do it all the time. I used to have these thoughts and just be like, I wonder what happens about this, and then like after a while I realized it's just not the right question to ask, or it's like I'm not thinking about it like full circle. But cool, I do agree with you. Single particles do matter. I wasn't saying that single particles don't matter. I'm just saying if you want to talk about like the probability of a measurement, you need to take many measurements. So it's more of like a statistical problem. But yeah. Like when it came to things like the Stern-Gerlach machines and stuff like that, that was a measurement of a single particle deflection, and they did that a couple times, and you got some real results. But okay, so let's keep going. We have a couple more questions. I'm gonna close the queue now because we're gonna plow through these questions in the next few minutes here. All right, Tropical Geek says, "What's the thing to come after string theory?"
Well, in the tower of physics, so of accepted physics canon, if string theory falls into that, then, the next thing in terms of energy level is M theory or something like that. But maybe you mean like what is the thing to supersede it, and like to supersede it in terms of sociologically what'll be most interesting to the field. I think I obviously don't have the answer to that, because if I did, I would invent it. And you guys, I would rescind my position as a moderator, and I would be on a cruise ship or whatever. I'd be collecting my Nobel Prize bucks. However, I think, there are a lot of things that are popular right now in my sort of branch of the archive. So I was naming some earlier, like dualities, but that was kind of more popular in the 90s, early 2000s, and there's amplitudes, that kind of stuff. I am a little dubious about the amplitudes program, but I won't say anything bad because there are powerful people who work on that subject, and I don't. I think that one of the most interesting programs, now to answer your question, in physics, in high energy physics right now, is the Bootstrap program. I don't currently work on the Bootstrap program, but I would love to. So what the Bootstrap program is it says, what we really should do is we should try to bootstrap quantum field theory by just looking at the minimal set of consistency conditions. So you say most of the time when we start with a quantum field theory, we start with a Lagrangian and we write it down. We go blah blah blah. This is the Lagrangian. These are the effects of having this Lagrangian. But what the Bootstrap program is basically doing is it says, what can we do? Well, we can scatter particles. What is the thing that basically describes particle scattering? That's called the S matrix, right? So if you guys have done quantum field theory, you might have seen the S matrix. If you haven't, who cares? It's just like the matrix that describes scattering. And then you say, what are properties that the S matrix has? The S matrix has unitarity, it has analyticity in momentum, like all these sort of like just very minimal basic properties like crossing symmetry. So if you look at scattering amplitudes for electrons coming in and positrons coming out, that's related to this amplitude. If you scattered one electron and positron and then one electron and positron came out, the amplitudes are related to one another in a way. And then you say, can we just talk about quantum field theory as really being the thing that takes all of these basic properties that we think every single one of them should have, smushes them together, and then just tries to use consistency principles to build it up. So this was started in like in the days of Heisenberg. Heisenberg introduced the S matrix. It was very popular in like the 60s, and I think it had some success in studying pion scattering, and then it just died because it turns out that it was super duper duper hard. And in modern times, we're actually able to revive it because of new techniques in the field and also just improved computing power. And so what this lets us do is, instead of like having to worry about theories and computing things and loop diagrams and blah, 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 we can literally take the space of all eligible quantum field theories, or things that could be maybe called quantum field theories, and we can start to carve it out. So we can say like, this whole thing is the allowed parameter space, and we're going to just hack off this half because everything on this half of the parameter space doesn't satisfy some consistency condition like unitarity or something like that. And so what this Bootstrap program is basically doing is it's letting us make statements about every quantum field theory at once. And it's accelerating rapidly. And yeah, there's a Simon's collaboration about it. I think it's the coolest area. physics.
Cool. Yeah, it's called bootstrapping, and it's was originally because the idea was that you sort of like, you just sort of pick yourself up by the boots type of motto was how I've heard the people talk about it, and it's really like this trying to like build a theory up from something that you consider to be fundamental, like symmetries, instead of starting with something like a Lagrangian that has a much longer root of like dynamics and things like that. Okay, so let's kind of do this. Now, Justin's the first person I can do this with, so I'm going to take advantage of this because I want to get to our game. But I'm going to ask 2 more questions. We still have several questions in the queue that I'm missing it. There's a statistical bootstrapping. Interesting, Tropical. It's probably the same thing along the same lines.
Yep.
But
That's
I'm
called
going
the
to...
boot stat.
Oh, the boot stat?
Sometimes.
Oh, I get it. Statistical bootstrapping. I get it. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take advantage of this because I want to get to our game tonight. If you have a question and it doesn't get answered, I highly encourage you to go to Discord and ask. And then if Justin has time over the next few days, as Justin is busy doing everything else, and your question does not get answered, don't feel free to post it into the appropriate category. Justin is very active on the Discord, and I'm sure he'd love to answer some questions over the next few days, if not week, whenever he has free time. We only have a few questions left, so we're not missing too many. But let me ask a few more questions really quickly. Aside from perturbative expansions, what is the difference in grand theories anyways? This is from Pragmatic Entropy.
I don't really know what that means. So aside from perturbative expand, if by grand theories they mean like in grand unified theories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the difference between a grand unified theory and the theory we have now? Well, there would be an explanation for all of the particle content that we see now. There would be like why it is what it is in some sense. I mean, you're moving the goalposts really, but it would kind of give you an explanation. Hopefully it would explain to you why there are 3 families. It would hopefully, to make a more fundamental theory, in some sense, you would like the number of free parameters to be reduced. So right now, for example, we have the strong coupling constant, the weak coupling constant, the electromagnetic coupling constant. You would like there to just be one coupling constant, and then the other 3 basically descend from some sort of mathematical trickery. I don't really know what perturbative expansions have to do with it. I mean, obviously, you would do different Feynman diagrams if you were working with different field content.
Right.
But yeah, that would be.
They kind of control the symmetries of the whole system, right?
Yeah. If you want to do rapid fire, I can just ramble less. If you.
I only want to ask 2 more. And then the rest we are still gonna miss a couple, but I feel like if people would like to, they can ask on the Discord. Because I haven't had a guest where I could do that, so I'm gonna take advantage of that. So I guess I'm gonna combine 2 questions. The first, and they are the following way. Do you feel like majoring in math helped you grow more in the field rather than majoring in physics? And an aside to that is, do you feel like if you wanted to do a mathematical physics, like a truly mathematical physics, would you get enough math from a physics course? So this is all about your math experience with undergraduate, and do you think that how much math do you think is needed to be a mathematical physicist? Let's say in the truest sense of the words.
Yeah. So let me say this. If you go to your standard undergraduate program, and then you go to graduate school, at least here in North America, it's like a switch is flipped. And really, you will be doing a lot of studying no matter what. And there's a large step function in difficulty that seems to sort of happen in North America. I don't know if it's the same in Europe, but maybe if you did a math undergrad, you'll have more comfortability with rigorous proofs, and maybe you got to take a few advanced classes, so like representation theory or something like this, or like I have group theory background, which is not like that of a physicist. I took a lot of group theory classes where we just talked about characteristic polynomials and fields and rings and stuff like this. So like that's what the math degree kind of preps you for, and there's an extent to which that helps me as like if I go and I look at mathematical physics papers, I can kind of see what they're doing, and I can see the analogies, because lots of higher math, what you do is you're taking like simpler math, and you're just abstracting it, right? So instead of being a ring, now we're going to study categories, and instead of having ring homomorphisms, we're going to study functors between categories, right? So you can start to see the analogies, and maybe if you're a physicist, you don't appreciate that sort of thing. I also admit that being a math student and having lots of math background meant that I was taking math classes more seriously, or I was taking just more math classes than my fellow physics students, and that was really advantageous because I basically just saw physics classes in undergrad as applied math. So I got to quantum physics and I was like, oh, this is linear algebra, and linear algebra wasn't a requirement for physics students at my university, and for them they were not just learning physics, they were learning linear algebra.
Right.
So that is a plus side of doing math. On the other hand, as a physics student and going into physics graduate school, I really think that there are valuable lessons to be learned from grinding through your electrodynamics course, solving, dirty problems that aren't super idealized. Stat mech and thermodynamics, I've never appreciated thermodynamics properly, and I think it is, perhaps that goes back to Airsofter's question, that is something which I wish I could understand. The only way that I understand thermodynamics is through the lens of statistical mechanics, and the only reason I really understand statistical mechanics is because I'm like, this is very clearly statistics. So yeah. So there's a sense in which some of my education has been colored that way, and that could be negative.
I see.
Yeah.
So Tropical makes a good point for people who want to read the posts about this. Maybe Justin and I can come to an arrangement about something. But we'll talk in Discord and see if we can't figure something out. And perhaps just post maybe I'll make a post in Discord, or maybe I'll talk about it tomorrow on the stream. But we'll figure something out so that people who want to get the answers to these questions can get them. Even if they're not people who ask them, because I agree with Tropical. I think that's important. So we'll figure something out. But I do have one more question, just because I think this is really fun. I could do that, Tropical. That was one thing I was thinking about. So let's do this because I think it's really fun, and I like this a lot. And I have asked you this question a few times, I think. Last question. In a sentence, what is an orbifold? One sentence.
An orbifold is a manifold which has been divided out by some finite number of points so that it basically has singularities which touch. So there was a semicolon. There was a semicolon.
Okay, semicolon. Okay.
So consider a sphere. Take the two.
Comma.
Consider comma. Take the two points which are antipodal. Bracket. I don't know. Yeah.
Parentheses. Footnote.
Dash,
put
dash.
a little footnote in there.
Yeah. In orbifold, okay, I can give a one sentence thing, but it's not very instructive. So an orbifold is a manifold which is basically quotiented out by a group action. And what that roughly means is like, you guys know what manifolds are. They're smooth lumps in space. And an orbifold is basically a smooth lump in space, except now if you go through some point, you teleport to a different point.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because they're identified.
Yeah.
One example, whatever, who cares?
All right, very good.
Yeah, I should mention that the orbifolds which I study are technically those kind, but only sometimes. Actually, the kind that I study are more general. And if you guys know what a gauge theory is, actually, orbifold means discrete gauge theory. It's just, for historical reasons, discrete gauge theory is called orbifold.
So you should have just done the pencil trick then, and just been like, this is a orbifold, and then make like a sphere, like a spherical bump, like a semicircle, and then push the pencil through it, and be like, these 2 points are connected in an orbifold.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah. I mean, it really means discrete gauge theory. If everyone knows what a gauge theory is, then that's what an orbifold is. And it just so happens to turn out. I'm not going to. Sorry, I'm doing the thing.
It's fine. It's fine. It was just really funny. I knew it was gonna be funny because NC's exact instructions were in one sentence, and I was like, "It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen." But it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. It's very good because I learned, again, most important thing is learning, so it's good. I enjoyed that a lot. Booty, thank you so much for the subscription at tier 1. I really appreciate that. This has been an absolute wonderful conversation and a very insightful Q&A. Like I said, Justin and I will talk about, I just don't want to like flood Justin with a bunch of questions after the stream's over, so we'll talk really quickly and see what we can do about getting the rest of the questions answered. Just have no anticipations, that's all. Anyways, but I do thank you. Sometimes we'll just have too many questions and we won't get to them, and that's not something we should, too disappointed about. We should celebrate that because that means people have questions, and that's awesome. But nevertheless, I do want to play our obligatory game that we have to play because this is a lot of fun. And today,
you've also gotten very quiet for me. I don't know if that's the same for
quiet.
stream. Yeah.
Why did I get quiet?
Oh, great now.
Wow, what happened? I think I tipped the button or something. But it's better now.
Well,
right? It's better now?
Yeah, it's great. It's lovely.
Okay, cool. So like I said, I was saying that it's not something to be a bummer if we have too many questions. That's a good thing. That means that people are interested in the topic and want to know more. And I wish that we could answer everything, but we are pressed for time. So join the Discord, and hopefully we'll have some way to like discuss that in the future. But nevertheless, let's go on to our next portion of today's program, which is the game. It will be Justin and I versus you all. I want to know what you got. Okay, well, will you sabotage, Justin, if I let you pick what the reward's going to be?
No. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't. Do I have
Will you be
options? Because
honest?
I'm not going to be able to think of one off the top of my head.
Okay, maybe. What do you guys want? What do you guys want from me? I've given you everything. What do you guys want if we lose? I'm not too worried about it. Justin and I are going to win. Like, I'm not too worried about it. I don't even think we need to talk about it because I just feel like Justin and I are going to win. Today, you guys can think about what you want from me if Justin and I lose. A chicken. No, you can't have a chicken. You can't have a chicken. No. Cheap ponies for a week.
Have all the cheap ponies for a week. That's not bad.
How about I draw a chicken? How about we have another one where I draw a chicken and call it something? Chicken dinner. We'll figure it out. All the ponies. Your firstborn. Wow, this is getting darker faster. Okay. Booty, thank you for stopping by. And cool beard to Justin. I agree. Justin does have a pretty righteous beard. It's fun to use the TM. Awesome. Okay, so here we go. We are going to be playing higher or lower. Now, the way that this works is you are given an average monthly searches for a topic. Like, see here we have electrician has 301,000 average monthly searches, and then it's going to compare it to another one that you have to say, does it have higher or lower searches than electrician? And by getting it correct, then you advance to the next round and your score goes up. So we'll play like 3 rounds or something in the next half an hour. We'll figure it out. We'll play with the time. Shave all your hair, Tyrion says. I don't know if he's talking about me shaving my hair, but I will definitely shave hair. All of my hair, even. I will do an hair shaving stream for Tyrion. But anyways, until then, let's play. So Justin and I will go first just to sort of show you how the it will be click maps. So maybe I should do that first. So let's just play around really quick. So you guys can play now. So I have turned on click maps. So what you can do is you can click on the option that you think is higher or lower. So let's see here. What is the best way to do this? I guess what we'll do is we'll click on the one that's higher. I think that's the best option. So click on the option that you think is higher. Is it TED or electrician? So for basically, this is a click map. So if you've never used click maps, you take your mouse and you put it on the screen and you click. Okay, and that counts as a vote. So your goal is to click on the one that you think is higher. So if you click on TED, that means you think it's higher. If you click, they're clicking on my face again. If you click on lower, or if you think it's lower, then click on electrician. Okay, don't actually click the higher or the lower tabs because that's too close to the blob will overlap. So you want to click on the option that you think is higher. So is that electrician higher or is Ted higher? And that's the thing. So it looks like somebody is clicking really hard on my face and kind of like and throwing it off. So the chat says that they think that Ted is higher. So if we click higher, then it will go here, and they're correct. So you move on to the next round. So now, go ahead. Now you have Ted versus Tommy Cooper. I don't even know who Tommy Cooper is. So go ahead, chat. Which do you think is higher? Do you think Ted is higher or Tommy Cooper is higher? Again, click on the option that you think is higher. Is it Ted or is it Tommy Cooper? And then, shaving airs against TOS because of all the implications. Until you become blue with suffocation. Thank you, Tyrion. Okay, so you all pretty confidently think that Ted is higher, so then I'll click lower. And you are, of course, correct, because nobody's heard of Tommy Cooper. So then we'll stop, close, restart. We'll do this until you guys lose, and then we'll officially start. So, FIFA 17, well, we'll just end it, and then we'll start over. This is obviously going to be higher, so we'll just go lower. Okay, so now it's going to end. There's going to be an ad, because I can't get rid of it. But it's only for 5 seconds, so it's good. Free marketing. Okay. Anyways, next up. So, Justin and I will go first, but now you know how to play the game. And then we'll go from there. Okay, Justin, are you ready?
Yes, I have the stream open, so I can see pictures too.
Okay, so our choices are Ashley Madison, which is 823,000, versus field hockey. This is terrible. This is all off the bat. This is not fair. Excuse you, I was watching that ad. Stop watching ads. Okay, so right off the bat, this is awful, Justin. Ashley Madison versus field hockey.
You think it's hard or it's easy?
I think it's hard.
Oh, okay.
I think they're close. I think field hockey has less. That's just my opinion.
So I know traditionally we have a little bit of a timer, but I'll say, as I was saying to you earlier, but I'll say it now openly. So I was trying this earlier today, and I was consistently shocked at how wrong I was, how little I know.
Right.
Naively,
but like,
I'd think... Yeah.
You think field hockey? But like, who plays field hockey? Well, then again, who goes to Ashley
I think field hockey would be lower. I think.
Lower. Okay. I agree.
I think even though people maybe aren't necessarily going on Ashley Madison, I imagine it's mostly just guys, and that's it on there.
But field hockey is probably only like juvenile girls.
Well, that's what I mean. So like, yeah. I feel like Ashley Madison must just be higher, even if it's just for people being like, "Oh, what is it?" And then they like.
Oh, so this is just so to clear up some things. This is just Justin and I's turn. So we are versing you. So like, Click Maps is off currently right now because it's Justin and I's turn. I will turn on Click Maps during your turn, just so everybody's aware. Yeah.
Concretely, I think I would say field hockey lower. Are you in agreement?
I agree.
Okay.
Let's go lower.
Okay.
So that was
destroyed.
Fair bit easier than I thought.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously I think this next one's pretty straightforward. Is field hockey has 40,500 versus car rental. I mean, that obviously has to be higher. Everybody's looking for car rental when they're traveling. Okay, yeah. So easy agreement. Yeah, higher.
Yeah. Higher.
Okay. Good. We're at 2. Okay.
Doing good. This beats my record.
Car rental is 2.24 million versus Oliver Cromwell, who I think was some sort of revolutionary military, I think, something along those lines. Maybe it was earlier than revolutionary. I'm not stretching time. But obviously it's less than car rental, right?
I would think so, but
I'd hope so.
Confirm, this is a good point to confirm in case people are wondering. So it's something about it's just Google searches, like
in a month, average monthly searches.
So, yeah. Okay. So I guess this wouldn't really be affected if Oliver Cromwell recently made the news because of.
No.
Okay. All right. Lower.
It also kind of looks like Oliver Cromwell is handing the keys to somebody, just slightly. Okay. Lower. Okay. We're in agreement. We think lower.
Okay. Lower it is.
Safe. That was safe. No, we're safely win.
Yeah, let's not deliberate these ones. So
now it's Oliver Cromwell which is at 110,000 versus Anfield Stadium. I imagine it's higher.
I would imagine higher too, but I want to point out that Oliver Cromwell has more than double what field hockey had.
Ooh, good point. Good point.
So
Thinking about this strategically. But
Yeah.
Anfield Stadium is probably like, I mean, it's a big stadium, so I imagine there's a lot of people that
agree.
go there. You know what I mean? A lot of travelers and things.
Yeah.
But it probably
agree.
has lower seasons too, though.
That's true, and I wonder how much you would actually end up directly Googling Anfield Stadium. Like, if I was interested in this team where that was their home thing, I would go there and then I'd go to their Wikipedia page and find out they played there.
But I imagine the directions, like everybody Googles directions when they have to go there.
Yeah,
It's
but
just, is there
110,000
enough?
a month?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a lot. I still think it's higher. I still think it's higher.
Okay, it could be like the biggest stadium. I'd never know. I don't know anything, so.
Oh my gosh. $14,000.
Mhm.
Not even close.
Mhm.
Like almost 100,000 less. Even Tyrion was wrong. Okay,
This is
we got F. I don't think Twitch chat's gonna be any good at this. Let's give them a timer for like, I don't know, like a minute or something.
Yeah.
A minute seems pretty good. I think we averaged around a minute. Some of them were really fast at. Okay. Stopwatch. Okay. All right, you're up, Twitch chat. Click Maps is on. Go for it. Is cheap flights or MasterCard? Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
That's a hard one.
Easiest win of our lives.
Oh man. That's a hard one. This one is a brutal one to start with. You guys don't stand a chance. Cheap Flights has 6.12 million searches for Cheap Flights versus MasterCard, one of the major credit cards. And okay, you're clicking on my face again. It's a little bit split still right now. It's 43 to 23. You guys, I'll give you extra time if I think the vote is going back and forth. Cheap Flights is... Yeah, I'll give you extra time because I feel like the voting is a little uneven still. Even though half of it's on my face from one very, very aggressive clicker. One very aggressive clicker is still clicking my face. But now there's a little bit... I'll give you guys a couple more seconds because it's only been a minute and 10. So we'll go a little bit longer. And this is a hard one. I feel bad. Visa is better. I believe it says. Visa is definitely... If it was Visa, I'd be like, hands down, it's Visa. But MasterCard is a little bit more iffy.
Well, people might also Google Visa because of other reasons.
Yeah. All right, we're going to end the timer. It's almost been 2 minutes. Cheap Flights has the majority. So that's it. It's got to be lower. What do you think, Justin, now that the voting has ended? I would say MasterCard is probably higher.
I would maybe say lower.
Okay.
I think there's more people... See, because I think this comes from Google search results, so I think there's more people typing in cheap flights, whereas most people, if they want information about their MasterCard, they might go to their bank and
Yeah, wow, I don't know. Yeah,
bank
maybe.
websites, Anyway,
Let's find out. Here we go. Oh, very good. Very good. Okay, so they're on. They got this one. Next up, MasterCard versus mental health. Which one has more monthly searches? That's also kind of a difficult one, too. But I feel like, I don't know. I mean, maybe this isn't too difficult, come to think about it. Cheap Flights is right up there with male escort, says Tyrion. Why am I surprised? Tyrion just shows up and just derails the conversation completely. Yeah, you're clicking which one is higher. Yeah. It's got Sniper being MasterCard, so it better be MasterCard. It is not. MasterCard was lower. 5 people are confidently clicking on this hunt. Now it's 6 people are confidently clicking. So I guess the answer is people think that mental health is higher. We're almost at the 1.5 minute mark. I think this is a pretty much a sweep. We're gonna go mental health is higher. Here we go. Oh no. Rip. Oh man. That's awesome.
Oh, I guess
that's awesome.
Doing the actions of the ad doesn't work with the latency.
Yeah, no,
but,
it's not the easiest. You could, like my guest is always like a second behind me, and I always have to react in like real time. It's funny, but no. Don't blame me. I'm clicking on the face. Tyrion says, "You fools." Okay, Justin, we're up again. Here we go. We already have a score of 3, so it's pretty good. I'd say it's pretty good. Maybe we should time ourselves just for the sake of consistency. Okay, so we have The Wire. I've never even heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it has 450,000. Oh wait, is that the paper or the blog or the journal? The Wire? Is that a journal? I feel like journals beat out everything else. I'm actually kind of not confident that cycling is higher.
No, I would say lower. See, I think this is the point or at least this makes me contextualize why we're so bad, is that I think it's like, if you think about it as literally people typing those words into Google, it makes the results make more sense, because like there's probably way more content related to cycling, or like it's way more, like, I don't know, like maybe I don't actually know how important The Wire is, but I just imagine that there's the number of people going to Google and being like cycling and hitting enter is probably actually very low. Like there's probably way more people doing stuff related to cycling per video. Anyway, that's a long way to say lower. I think lower. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm ready to be wrong.
Linux says I'm thinking about Wired magazine, and they're absolutely correct. I am thinking about Wired magazine. Okay, so let's do cycling is lower. Agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
that was close. Okay, so now we have cycling versus, I'm not gonna say this name right, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
That sounds great.
I know Ibrahimovic, but people will probably still say that's wrong, which they're probably right. But is it cycling or Zlatan Ibrahimovic? He's not rugby, he's soccer, right? He's not rugby, he's soccer. I think soccer. Fairly certain he's a soccer player. For Sweden,
Naively,
if I remember. So I imagine, and he's like hyper famous. I imagine it's him.
okay. Yeah, naively, I would think he was higher. Earlier, I noticed that some of the sport, like there was a basketball guy, I was like, oh, he's got to be up around like 1 million. And he was actually quite low, but...
he's French. Wait, is he French or... No, I think he plays for a French team, but he is Swedish. Now I don't know, because he plays Sweden national team. But he might play for like a French Premier League or something like that. Yeah, I imagine he's higher. He's like hyper famous. So we're going to go with higher. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
You can open your eyes.
Because I don't want you to spoil it for me.
I know. I'll react without words. And then you can just you just cover your eyes, okay? He was on the LA Galaxy. Are you serious? He played on I see. That's funny. I didn't know he ever played in the States.
Played for leg.
So for leg.
I was like, okay, I don't know where I was going with that. But,
okay, so now we have Zlatan versus engagement rings. To me, engagement ring seems higher.
Really? Okay. So
were you gonna say lower?
I was gonna say by my logic it would have been lower. I'll tell you this much. Okay, I'll tell you this. From recent experience, not from me, but I know that somehow something on people's some background whatever algorithm on people's phones in my house makes every ad for engagement rings. So I can't even conceive of a world where that would be a thing you have to Google, because they're just constantly forced down your throat with every ad. So
oh, I see. But they also like the term, like you were saying earlier, the term engagement rings is weird. You know what I mean? Like it's not like something that people would often form together. Like what is someone going to look for when they look for an engagement ring? versus
Yeah.
someone who's like, who's Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
And this comes back to the stadium thing again. I can't imagine 673,000 people are looking for engagement rings.
Right.
A month.
month.
But then again, I know people in my direct orbit who are just looking at them all day, so I could be wrong. But I'm gonna say, you said higher, I say lower, but
I'm gonna go with lower. I have changed my mind.
okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, well, I talked you out of it. You have recorded evidence of me.
No one talked bad about Zlatan. Okay, cool. So there it is. We all got 2, but we still have our score of 3 from before. Now it's your turn. This will be the final round. So if you guys can beat 3, then you have won. If not, then you have lost. And what that means is, I guess Justin and I are just better, which I'll take. I'll take being better than you all. The hive mind, beating the hive mind. We get to brag about our IQs. Okay, that's not. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
Why
it.
are Twitch chats so hard?
Stop.
that's
Stop. Stop. Stop.
Wait, what?
Everybody
It's
stop.
the same?
Oh, come on. Look at me. I'm on a roll right now, just randomly clicking. I'm trying to get this to be... There we go. Okay.
All right.
Jeez, Lou. Higher or lower, what are you doing to me? Okay, let's try again. Twitch chat. Okay, so the questions are, which one's higher or lower? Malaysia versus To Kill a Mockingbird. Come on. I can't believe that happened. All right, you just vote. Which one's higher? The way to vote, we're playing with click maps if you're just joining us, is your turn. Click on the one that you think is higher. Click on the one that you think is higher, and then I will know whether or not to pick higher or lower for To Kill a Mockingbird. I still just can't believe that happened. Oh, man.
Yeah,
I
it's
do
a
look like
statue.
John Krasinski. I've never gotten the Jacksepticeye thing before. I've never gotten that one. That's a first, but I do look like John Krasinski. I get John Krasinski all the time. Yeah. We are basically brothers, but he doesn't know it or that I exist. But anyways, To Kill a Mockingbird's still a required book for school. Not most schools, I don't think. So Malaysia is the confident winner. So yeah, this is a physical game that you can play at home by using the mouse at your PC to just click on one that you think is correct. So just so you know. So Malaysia has won the vote for sure. So let's see where you guys are at. So To Kill a Mockingbird would be the lower. Here we go. Starting off. Okay, so you start off good. Okay. Reset. All right, now you get To Kill a Mockingbird versus AK-47. This one's hard. I have no idea. This one's gonna be hard. I think. I just don't think people would Google AK-47 too frequently, but maybe they would. Some
Can
Call
you
of
kill a
Duty
mockingbird
nerds.
with an AK-47.
To Kill a Mockingbird. Why are they doing that? In America alone. I don't know about that. Yeah, so I guess I have no idea. I have no idea about this one. It could be a complete blowout because we were wrong about some of these by a long shot.
was way
Like
wrong on the
engagement
rings.
rings. Like that's wild. 1.5 mil on engagement rings. Who's just Googling engagement rings? What are you looking for? What do you actually find when you Google engagement rings? Seems so weak. Okay, it's pretty confident. The 5 users are pretty confident that it's going to be the right one. So we're going to stop there. 100%. Let's go for it. AK-47 is higher. Okay. Not as convincing, I suppose. AK-47 versus New England Patriots. This is easy, in my opinion. This is easy. Easy peasy. Although they do have an off season, so maybe the off season might destroy the fact that this is an average monthly viewer.
Well, it makes me also wonder again about this sort of thing. Like, don't know what contributes. For example, like, do most New England Patriots fans just type in Patriots.
Oh, I don't know.
Patriots
or even
football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
Mm.
People Google it just for the hate, just to hate on it. So we'll give you guys a few more seconds. Let me get my timer rolling here. Let me give you a few more seconds. So New England Patriots. So this is to tie us. So if they get this right, they tie. That's okay. Everyone's in on the Patriots. I guess we'll go with the Patriots. I actually agree with this decision. I think Patriots is higher. I actually think it might be a blowout. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, and I think this one's a lot harder. Okay, now it's New England Patriots versus Nicki Minaj. Here we go. I will restart this. I will give you a timer because I think this one might be a little controversial. Let's see here. Nicki Minaj versus the New England Patriots. Who do you think has more average monthly searches? This is for the win. If y'all get this, you win.
And remind our viewers what the prize is.
What was the prize?
A new car. No.
A new car. Okay. If anybody believes that, then yes. Jeez, Lou. All right. Wow. People are going with Nicki Minaj higher as the higher one, more than the New England Patriots. It's definitely Nicki. A knife set. I have a couple good knives, and nobody's taking any of them. They're from my culinary days. The culinary days. All right. Are we gonna go for it? I think this is. I mean, it's been over a minute now. And it's 100% unanimous that Nicki Minaj is higher. This is for the win. Let's get rid of this. Here we go. Are you ready? Let's get some drum roll, please.
Oh my God.
They were right.
Oh my gosh.
All right, let's all play together. Let's finish this up. What about lung cancer? I think lung cancer is probably higher, right?
Wait, really?
I think lung cancer would be higher than Nicki Minaj, don't you? Oh, you think it's lower? What do you guys think in chat? Lower or higher?
I'm bad at this game.
Are we doing lower? I thought it'd be higher. I thought it'd be high. I thought lung cancer would be a high.
Yeah.
Lower. NC says lower. Astrophysics is higher. Now we have a 2-2 split. Next vote splits it. Who's the next vote? Higher or lower? Tell us in chat. Lower. Wow, by a landslide. By an absolute landslide. Okay.
Team
How
lower,
about
go.
Beirut barracks bombing? I think that's lower.
There's
We can
no
all
way
agree.
people are Googling that each month. Over 200,000.
Yeah, we're in consensus. It's lower.
All right.
880. Okay. Wow. Okay. Versus Johnny Cash. Okay, let's go higher.
All right, another freebie.
Yeah, higher. Higher on Johnny Cash, definitely.
Imagine if it wasn't, though.
Next up, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think higher. People are probably trying to watch it, right? Trying to watch it, but that many people, 1 million hits. Actually, I changed my mind. 1 million people are not interested in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, Johnny's in chat. Yeah, I have people saying Johnny.
All
What do you
right.
think?
I think I've been convinced it's lower. Good night. Thank you for coming, Sir Physics TV.
Good night, Sir
Sorry.
Physics. Definitely Curb.
question
No,
didn't
Curb
get
was
answered.
low. Yeah. Okay, so now it's Coachella versus Curb Your Enthusiasm. What do you think? Coachella? I think Coachella is higher. With all the controversy and stuff. Yeah.
I would have thought higher as well, yeah.
Okay. Coachella. Someone listening says Coachella. Blayman says Coachella. Okay, let's go Coachella. That's it. Game over. We
All right.
lost. That's a good
Well-
score, though.
We're more powerful together than we are apart.
Yeah, but chat has crushed. Chat's won. If you guys do want something, like a oh, what do we do tonight? So we're gonna lower the channel points for Pony. Do we want a chicken drawing as well? Justin, you tell me. Do you want a chicken drawing? How about chicken and pony?
Of course.
Let's do chicken and pony together. So we'll lower the cost of pony and we'll do chicken and pony. That was all the fun. That was a lot of fun. Anyways, it's past 10, so let's wind this down. Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. First of all, apologies to everyone. Big Canadian sorry for rambling so long and stupidly about my childhood and not answering more physics questions. I know,
fantastic.
but I should answer physics questions.
No, you answer enough physics questions. And from the community, I've said this a couple times on it, but from the community, as people trickle in, I want to say a deep thank you for all of the help that the free time that you've given, not only to me. I mean, Justin's answered like dozens of my questions. I kid you not, I've answered one of Justin's questions. One. I think you've only ever asked me two, and one of them I didn't know. The other one was about supersymmetry in n=1, and that was pretty much the only thing I knew. And I could like point you to the page where I like quoted from. That was the only
very helpful page.
The only thing I was able to ever answer from Justin's questions. But Justin's answered dozens of mine. He's answered dozens of your questions in chat, in Discord. So from the community, thank you very much. Also, thank you for being my guest tonight. I learned a ton about string theory, about you, about and there was a bunch of good information about colleges, applying, what's important. Sight Queen's on. Let's raid Sight Queen. But anyways, I do want to say a big thank you to Justin for being here. And Justin, do you have any last words?
Yeah, as the first person who's part of the community for you to interview, like directly, I mean, it's very fun. The Discord's a great place. I love it. So hopefully other, thank you to you, and, hopefully people love it as much as I do. And I'd like to thank my mother for always believing in me, my director, my producers, my great co-stars.
That's fantastic. Oh, man.
But thanks again.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to get this set up really quickly. I forgot I turned all the volume down, so now I can't mute it. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, I can't control. Okay. Hold on. Now it's all screwed up. All right, we're going to raid Sight Queen anyways. I won't be able to be there, but we're going to raid Sight Queen because we haven't raided Sight Queen in a really, really long time. An excellent psychology streamer and a very just generally cool person. Go and ask them questions, hang out. But thank you all for being here. Next is Jax. We'll see. I don't know if Jax will be comfortable on camera, but I would love to talk to Jax. Definitely some interesting... that'd be a hard timing to work out though, South Africa, but I'm sure we could make it happen. But yeah, anyways, so very cool. Thank you for being here. Remember, tomorrow is the Twitch game show, Twitch Physics game show, Twitch Physics Challenge happening here. Topic is 19th century physics, and we'll see where those questions take us. I also am doing quantum computing discussion series. I've already done the notes. I'm ahead, and we're talking about the postulates of quantum mechanics, Hamiltonians, Schrodinger's equation, all the good stuff. It's only going to be about 20 minutes. It'll be a lot of fun. So come around for that. That'll happen first thing at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then after that, we'll have a little question answer hangout time, and then we'll start the game show. So be here tomorrow, 1 p.m. at this location. If you haven't followed, follow. Let me hit this command going. Let me get the socials out. And again, thanks Justin. Thanks for being here. And have a good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Alright, you gotta give me just a second while I do my closing down stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
I can't hear the stream, and it's really annoying me now. Why can't I hear it? Okay, let's